everybody's watching. We've got Mary, Ember. I'm not sure what happened to Duncan. He's having technical issues. And then we've got Josh trying to get in, and we'll just see who else pops up. We
Yeah.
kind of talked about the Amish backstage, and we kind of have a professional here, so I think we'll just talk about that a little bit if you want, and then we can go into something else, whatever pops up. We also mentioned something philosophical. I forget what it was now. Amber had a couple of topics I think that sound
Oh yeah,
interesting.
there's
Subjective versus objective ethics.
Oh, that was.
Ooh.
But I thought that could be fun. Yeah.
And I was
See.
also talking about maybe we could talk about the beliefs that we held,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the lies, like the things we tell ourselves about things.
Yeah.
Me
Be
neither.
interesting too. I try not to tell myself too many lies, but I'm sure I do. We've all got a little cognitive dissonance, I think, about something, whether it's religion or something else. There's usually something we gotta lie to ourselves about.
This
yeah,
is
for
true.
sure.
One of my listeners says that Wes has cool lights.
Oh, thank you.
nice. They are pretty
Yeah.
cool lights, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think even those of us who try to be skeptics and as the saying goes, try to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. We still do that to some extent. Like, we hit a financial crisis and we tell ourselves, "Oh, things will be fine," just to avoid panic,
Mhm.
That's the truth. As far as like talking about the Amish, though, what do you want to know? Should we have Amber ask questions?
If you have any, Amber.
I don't really know enough to know
Okay.
what to ask. Like I've
Yeah.
run into Amish people now and then. As a truck driver, I've delivered to them. As a traveler, I've run into them on buses. I did see an interesting group of Amish teens who may or may not actually have been on Rumspringa in Idaho at one point, but I know very little about the actual culture.
It is definitely an interesting culture. And what do you have to say about the Ruma?
Rumspringa. Rumspringa.
I can't even say
The
that.
greatest lie ever fed to the American people about Amish people. Okay.
So that's not actually a thing?
Well, it's a half truth. That's why it's the greatest lie ever.
Okay. That sounds like religion. Oh.
So
Okay.
if you saw my face, this is not my, like, I get this question a lot. Everybody knows how I feel about Rumspringa if they follow my work and who've heard me speak about it. First off, I would encourage you to actually listen to a panel discussion I hosted about Rumspringa. It had a variety of people from various communities. I lived in 5 different communities myself. The settlements that I lived in, we didn't practice Rumspringa. We said when we turned 16, 16 and a half, or 17, according to the settlement's rules, we went with the young folks. That whole idea that we get to go live in the world and experience the world and then we choose to go back to live on the farm, that is a myth. For many of us. Like there's partying that may happen. I'm not gonna lie. I write about this in my book. In my book, I write about going to a party, a neighbor kid's party, in my Amish dress, doing a keg stand in my Amish dress at this party. There is a picture out there, and I need the internet. You can find all this stuff. Why can't you produce this picture of me in my Amish dress doing a keg stand? Because somebody's parents took that picture to my deacon. I had to confess and make my things right in church on my knees. Okay? So I want that picture. I want that picture. And yes, maybe I partied with some English kids, but I didn't get to go live English. And I most certainly didn't get to keep my money. If I made money, I didn't get to keep my money. My parents kept it. That was theirs. We didn't come of age until we were 21. Everything we earned up until we were 21 was considered our parents. We owed it to our parents.
Hmm.
So, Rumspringa, it's a bunch of half
Used
truths.
to, mainly what I get from it is, and from you before talking about this, it's not. There is no choice.
Well, like, can
Well,
you, if you
Not
guys can
really.
hear me, I don't know. I forgot.
Sorry, Clyde's in the background.
we can
I
hear you,
couldn't hear
Clyde.
what you said though.
Awesome. I mean, like, could you like elaborate what Rumspringa is? I think I butchered that because I'm not familiar with it.
Well, I just told you that, like, we didn't even call it Rumspringa. It was called going with the young folks. We
Oh,
went
okay.
to the singings on Sunday nights, and in some communities, we might have gotten together and played volleyball in the afternoons on Sundays. We were
Well,
allowed to date. We were
Scandalous.
supposed to find somebody to get married to, and we were always supposed to get baptized at the right time.
seems very
And
controlling.
yes, and if we didn't get baptized at the right time, I saw people getting sent to facilities to, you know, get their mind right so that
Hmm.
they won't run away from the Amish.
Well,
I saw people being manipulated by certain rules being bent until they were baptized, and then the rules were magically back in place again.
That's weird.
Like
So,
black magic.
I mean, is it really a choice to get baptized?
Doesn't sound like it.
Like, people love to say, they love to use Rumspringa as an we have an option. They use this as a way to like glorify Amish culture, and they say, well, Amish youth have the options. They know more because they live these two cultures and they go out into the world and they live English and then they come back and then they get baptized. That's not really necessarily true.
Interesting.
And sometimes we have parties and sometimes we do things that, teenagers do, like going to parties and doing cake stands in our Amish dresses. Like that should. And then we confess on our knees. I'm telling you, I want that picture. I need the internet to produce this. You know what? That's proof there is no God. Because if there was a God,
you
he
mean there's
would
a
have produced
contradiction?
that
Then?
picture. Say what?
You mean there's contradictions with religion?
I mean,
Yeah,
is there a contradiction? Do you
I
see
think
any
there's.
contradictions in that?
There are
In
no
America.
contradictions.
Like, yeah. Somebody says, yes, we need a picture of Fee confessing on her knees. Yeah, sure you do.
Oh,
I'm very sure you do.
yeah.
So, anyways, contradictions in religion. How
What are
about
what are some of the lies that you've heard from your what are they called, elders? The
Yep.
I don't know
Yep.
what the leaders of your like immediate communities. I
Okay.
have no idea what they're called.
So in each settlement that I lived in, they had maybe some of them only had one church, some of them had two churches, but like some of them would have like 14 church districts or etc. Each church district would have a bishop, two ministers, and a deacon.
Bishop
Okay.
and deacon. Okay.
Twice a year, they would get together and they would have what they called a Dienelversammling, which is basically a seminar where they would rewrite the Ordnungsbrief, which is the church rules that were all handwritten in a letter. And then,
Oh, hey, what's going on, everybody?
hey,
Hello.
Josh.
What's happening? What's
Good
happening?
timing
My
as
Paul.
usual.
I didn't realize I was on the stage as of yet. Okay.
But then,
Right.
after they rewrote the rules, then they would take a vote, and if the church agreed, then they would have Ordnungsme and Großkme. So they would have basically rules church that was about 6 hours long. Wait, it would go from like 9:30 a.m. until about 3:30. So we were sitting on wooden benches, like there were backless wooden benches, and like everybody would be separated. You would have first your women and children would go into the kitchen because we had church in our homes. So women and children would go into the kitchen and they would all sit down, get settled as they arrived. And before they sat down and got settled, they had to go around and give everybody a handshake before they could sit down and get settled, right? And then you would have the ministry would go in and they would go through and give everybody a handshake all over again. And then the men would file in with boys under 12, but also only boys that were old enough to be potty trained usually. And then after that, the girls would file in. Now, the girls above the age of 12, usually, like in the communities I lived in, you would have to be 12 to go with the girls. And you would file in. And in the communities that I lived in, some of them had the girls sit in front of the women in the kitchen, and others had the girls go sit in the living room in the back of the men. And then last, the boys would file in.
Okay.
They'd start off with this song that would take like 20 minutes to sing one verse for the record because it's really a chant.
Nice.
And then the ministry would go upstairs to a special room prepared for them to have their conference or whatever meeting. And we would keep singing until the ministry came back. We would keep singing. Once they came back, we would finish the verse we were on, and then they would start preaching. So at that point, I mean, I don't know about you, but like the cognitive dissonance that set in because of like some of the things that I heard at the preachings was like, if you love your child, you will hit your child. You will break their will in the high chair.
Yeah, that sounds like love.
That sounds a lot like love. Like that's not a lie or misrepresentation of truth, is it?
No.
Not at all.
No, that's exactly like how love is described in the Bible by the all-loving God who will set you on fucking fire if you don't love him back.
Is that another contradiction?
What's the contradiction? But
Josh,
anyways,
do you have any questions to
Hold on. Pardon?
Mary or anything before we move on to Ember or anything? Do you have any
No,
questions?
I got nothing as of yet. I'm just listening at the moment.
Yeah, there's a lot to listen to, and
That's what I felt. I came right on. I was like, okay, hold up. What are we talking about right now?
oh, there's still more to that
Yes,
church
music.
service, though. By the way,
Oh yeah.
like we do kneeling prayers, and at the
What do you mean
rules
kneeling?
church, like we physically get on our knees to pray in church.
Oh, kneeling. Okay.
Kneeling. We also do complete kneeling confessions. Like when I had to go to church and confess and say, make my things right. That's what we call it. We don't call it confession. We call it making our things right. Okay. I made my things right in church. And when I did that, I did it on my knees.
Yeah, I used to use that term to refer to getting laid. I made my things right. Giggity,
Oh,
giggity.
I do have a question for y'all.
That's the way.
The Bible does say, if you love your child, you won't spare the rod. What does that mean?
I think that's I've heard that I think it's a New Testament thing from Paul, but I believe it's a reference back to Exodus 21 maybe, where it talks about how if you beat your slave with a rod and he doesn't die in a couple of days, everything's kosher. Same thing with the kids. Since you own your kids just like you own your slaves, you can beat them with rods and it's fine.
I have another question, though. What about the context of the times? In those times, if people were shepherders, like if they were out herding their sheep, didn't they have a rod to guide their sheep around?
A shepherd's crook kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not so much for guiding, but yeah, the whole thing with the shepherd's crook is so you can. It was like a static lasso, so you could grab a sheep who was getting out of line.
I don't know. I didn't live back then.
Oh, it's some people still do it today, although most shepherds today use sheepdogs because they're way more effective and faster, and you don't have to actually chase the sheep yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But anyways, so then at the very end, they finally they get done. They have like 3 different ministers and bishop get up and preach. The deacon always reads a verse from the Bible in Hochdeutsch or the New Testament. Always. And then they sing a song, another song that it takes like forever to sing one verse because it's another chant. And then all the children leave. Only baptized members of the church can stay. Confessional privilege, they claim, right? And then they read the Ordnungsbrief, and then everybody has to agree with the Ordnungsbrief.
Why?
Like, why?
What is that? Is that like the minutes of what they decided in their convocation, or?
Yes. The Ordnungsbrief that is written by the ministry of that church district is what they have decided and agreed upon. And now they're reading it to the church, and now the church gets to vote on it. That's what the vote is. But typically, if you don't agree with it, like me personally, I was told when I was baptized, I'm not allowed to disagree with whatever my stepfather wrote. So I have to wrote whatever he says. So I don't know. Is it really a real vote if that's what we're told?
Yeah, if you only get one option.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if you did disagree, though. Like, no, I
But
vote
people
no.
do. But
Yeah.
people do, okay? And sometimes things happen. Like one time, there was a case recently in the last 3 years where an Amish bishop, and there was a woman who had reported her her abusive. I don't even know if she reported him, but she had a restraining order against her children's father, who she was married to, who was abusive to those children. DHS had told her if she doesn't drop the restraining order, that they will take her children. If she drops the restraining order, they will take her children. They went to court because the church shunned her for 2 years for keeping that restraining order in place. And they couldn't have Grossme and Otningsme for 2 years if I understood right. But don't quote me on that because I just heard it through the rumor mill. And furthermore, I have somebody who is born Amish in the comments talking about if you disagree, they will shun you. I've been involved in disagree. Which, yeah, you can get put in the bond and they will practice miting against you because that's also love because, all of these things that we do, they're just, that's love.
Oh, hey, that's an idea. Just define everything you do as a loving action, and then nothing you do can ever not be loving.
Yeah.
Be your kids, whatever. No contradiction.
Yeah, it's just like fascist societies define everything they do as freedom. You have to go to prison for freedom, or you have to work this job. You don't get to pick your job for freedom. All that kind of fun stuff.
Look, I was even told what I wanted to do in life. I wanted to grow up and marry a man, except I digress. When I was before my father died, I had told my Amish parents I was going to grow up and marry a woman. So there's that. They really tried to correct that. However, pause. I was taught I wanted to grow up and marry a man, be submissive, be a good wife, lead a good life, have as many children as the Lord sees fit to grant you. They are blessings. And work hard. because cleanliness is godliness, and it is your job to cook and clean and garden and bake and sew and, of course, help out with the farm.
And
You
mind the
are
children all at the same time.
exactly. It almost sounds like a fate worse than death to me, but I digress. All
I
right,
just
I'm
got
done.
to thank God you got out of it.
I'm done now. Oh, the other thing people can
Um,
do if they disagree with the rules of the church is they can move to another settlement, and that also happens.
Really? Hmm.
But it doesn't
Were you?
necessarily come without consequences.
What are the typical consequences?
Kind of depends
Okay.
sometimes on like what settlement did you move to? Do you känner mig med Sidina? Do you affiliate? Does your settlement now affiliate with the previous settlement, with the settlement you're looking to move to? Like the consequences are less severe if your settlement currently affiliates with the settlement you're moving to.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
like, for example, so it is very common if you are getting married as an Amish person, you invite your relatives. Often you can have weddings that have like, 250 to 500 people. I've heard more, I've heard less, but some people think it's prideful to have a wedding that has more than 250 people, but I digress. That's not the point. But it is customary to, if you have a relative, like let's say my uncle is a bishop and he lives in a settlement that we don't affiliate with, then at that point, if he attends my wedding, it would be customary for me to ask him to marry us. If my husband to be would agree, like we would ask him to marry us. But because we don't affiliate with each other, he would not even be recognized as a minister.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
if say for example you get shunned in one community because you do something that's outside the rules, and then you move to another community that's not affiliated and where the thing you did is not outside their rules, would you be considered an outsider or a person who's under shun, or would you be welcomed, or
Good question.
other?
It can depend on the settlement that you're going to, but it can also, there's this whole thing is like you have to be in good standing with the church to move to another settlement to be accepted.
So you got to be in good understanding with the church that you're leaving from, in a sense, to that new community.
Well, let me tell you a story. We speak in parables, English is our second language, but we speak in parables. When I went to an Amish abuse awareness meeting in 2021, May of 2021, there was an Amish man who got up and told this whole story of how there was a black preacher of the world who he had many conversations with. And this man said they knew, and some Amish, like 3 Amish couples, who had left the Amish, and he told them if they lost their peace, they have to go back to where they lost it to find it. And all 3 of those couples came back to the Amish and became good Amish again.
Interesting.
What did racism and stuff kind of look like? I may ask. Is there a lot
There's
of
a
racism?
YouTube
or-
video of a guy named Amish
Yeah.
Potato who says the Amish are not racist, but we said things that I can't say on this app. I watch people who refuse to give money to black people. If we went to a store and the cashier was black, my mother would not give them money. She would lay it down on the table, which is part of the practice of shunning, is like you wouldn't take anything from somebody's hand. You wouldn't sit at the table and eat with them. but it wasn't racist. According
Have
to
you done
a
a video,
video.
have you done a video on that yet?
We actually had a guest who was a brown person adopted into an Amish family on our YouTube channel.
Interesting.
Would have been
that out.
in 2021.
Be sure to check out Mary's channel if anybody hasn't checked it out. She's got some amazing stuff on there. But, Ember, are you a deconvert?
Not exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Just-
my grandmother tried like crazy to get me into Christianity, but I was one of those annoying little kids who kept asking questions, and so the various pastors and ministers kept asking my grandmother not to bring me back. So we'd try a different church, and then we'd try a different church. We went to, weirdly, my grandmother started out as a Catholic, and the only church that we never went to was the Catholic church in the town I grew up in. But yeah, I never got anywhere with it. I did eventually become a minister, but it's kind of it's a really really long story. But no, I've just never quite got snared by Christianity.
I was in church
How do you
8 to
become a
9 or so for a while, but I never took to it.
How do you become a minister, but you're not really in Christianity? Please do enlighten me. I'm really interested in knowing this.
There's a bunch of different non-Christian religions, Islam, Wicca, various neo-paganisms, and a bunch of other stuff, and they all have the same legal rights for ministerial purposes, performing weddings or whatever the equivalent of baptism is, and things like that. And so there are churches that go beyond non-denominational to just be universal, and you can get ordained through them in order to be legally a minister for either one of those fringe religions that you may not have a local church for, or to work with people of any religion, which is what I did. Because for a long time, I was very much into spirituality, and I was the sort of person that, even as a kid, adults would come to me with their problems and want to talk about them and so on and so forth. So it just kind of, it naturally fit in that respect too. Also, I really enjoy performing weddings because that's like the best thing ever. When people come together, they're having their magic moment. Even knowing that half of weddings end in divorce, like it's that one day when they're surrounded by their families and their dearest friends, and everybody's happy for them. It's just freaking wonderful.
Interesting. So then, are you Unitarian Universalist? Is that it?
No, just a straight up Universalist.
Okay.
Yeah, officially. Yeah, I had an interesting time. I joined the Navy as part of the chaplain program, and I had a very interesting time with that because I don't know if it's changed since I left, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, they only had two categories, Catholic and Protestant. If you were a Hindu, you were a Protestant. If you were a Muslim, you were a Protestant. If you were an atheist, you were a Protestant. So
Can we just talk about how much the military pushes religion?
Sure.
Good topic. I would love to hear a little about that.
Because I mean, like, here's the thing. I've lived on several different military installations, and typically what I see is there is support for Catholics, like even to the point that some places they will announce their Catholic Mass at noon every day, but they don't announce any other religions' religious rites. And I find that hypocritical.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
What's the
it's
reason for that? Do they ever explicitly say something about that?
no, it's kind of a low key institutional. This is just how things are sort of situation.
Yeah.
Like all the bases that I'd been to, they would make a big deal out of Catholic Mass. And the Protestants were welcome to come to Catholic Mass if they wanted, because they'd offer communion. And so you could do an altar call kind of thing. You could get your wafer and your grape juice or whatever the hell the case was, and do the transubstantiation magic that the Catholics enjoy so much. And there's a few other denominations that do similar things, but if you wanted to do something that was denomination specific but not Catholic, they had a secondary chapel, which was also decked out with crosses and whatnot, but that's where the Muslims had to go pray. That's where the Buddhists had to go if they wanted to do meditations or what have you. It was just really, really Christocentric.
Was there any atheists in foxholes then? Did you hear that?
There's absolutely atheists in foxholes.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite things when people bring it up, because having been in situations, the atheists, it turns out everyone's an atheist in a foxhole, because it's the believers who freak out and are like, oh, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. I'm like, you're the one with the guaranteed afterlife. You should be eager to jump on a grenade or something, go to Valhalla or whatever the fuck you believe in. Like, the rest of us are just like, we need to deal with this and try not to die, you know?
Makes sense.
Yeah, but that requires actually looking. Never mind. You know what? I just have a problem with the obvious catering to Catholicism in some ways, or like you said, Christocentric. I have a problem with that. I think that it's also ridiculous that there's like this thing of like you can't opt out of religious events.
Well, I think because the military in and of itself is very and highly religious in certain aspects, definitely within the United States, definitely within Canada, definitely within Mexico. There's a lot of religious affiliation when it comes to the military, and sometimes just like the numbers of religious individuals that are there is predominantly either Catholic or Protestant or whatever the situation may be. So obviously they focus on the more Judeo-Christian values. Obviously, it makes sense when you have the majority of individuals within the military who are Judeo-Catholic. Not Judeo-Christian, I mean to say. So everybody needs to fall in line.
They could be entirely secular, but I think part of it is another lever of control, but another part of it has to do with the recruiting practices, because the vast majority of the military comes from highly impoverished areas, which tend to be urban areas, which tend to be very religious.
Very religious, exactly.
Yeah. So it's kind of like catering to... Yeah. It's like an after the fact recruiting strategy. Like you may have left home and whatever, but you can still hang out with Jesus or whatever it is that you worship with, and still feel some kind of connection or something like that. And it's all psychological marketing stuff.
Exactly. And I think that, and definitely when it comes with Catholicism as well, because there's definitely a large minority, let's just say, of Catholics that are also within the military as well, as long as Protestants, I'm not just saying, but you have a lot of Catholics that are there. So obviously when you're trying to recruit individuals, you're looking at the individuals who are coming in and you're appeasing those individuals with the belief systems that they have. So it makes perfect sense why they would predominantly focus on Judeo-Christian value, or be more Judeo-Christian centric in that way within the military.
Like everybody else is allowed to be there, is tolerated is kind of the sense you get, but you're still you're semi-excluded. You're not really part of the group. So yeah, there's pressure to convert, because if you're a part of a unit, you have to all be on the same page and all be together and all be like a single unit. But if they're all going to Catholic service and you're a Muslim, then you don't fit in. And so it's on you to fix yourself or some shit like that.
Right. But I mean, at the same time, too, because coming from being a Muslim for 5 years myself, you kind of have to be isolated in and of itself, right? Like you can't go with other Catholics or with Protestants and pray alongside them. You need to do your own thing. You got to go towards your own area where you can pray to God, in
Mhm.
a sense. So it's not necessarily like it seems that way, but it's kind of like welcome for you to be isolated if you are the few who are Muslim within the U.S. military, to be in your own space doing your own prayers, because you don't want to deal with those other individuals of religious difference from you, in a sense. No, that's not with
Mhm.
all Muslims. I will not state that. Not with all Muslims, but it matters what type of Muslim you are dealing with, though. So there are
Mhm.
certain ones that wouldn't mind. They'll just put out a prayer mat whenever it's time, and they'll pray wherever it may be. But there are also some that will go into and forcibly put themselves in isolation away from the other religious constituents within any
Mhm.
area. So you got to look at that.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was it like
I'm
leaving Islam, Josh? Can you say a little bit about that? I know a little
Ye-
bit, but
Yeah, it was difficult. It was definitely difficult because a lot of people and people who are my friends and stuff like that turned on me. And one of my friends actually, or friends, I should say, when I was working at a bouncer afterwards, actually came up and attacked me while I was working as a bouncer and gave me a concussion and stuff like that based on me leaving Islam. They saw me as a kafir, in a sense, a kafir. So the in certain extents, I find that the Christians sometimes have it easier when they leave, because even with me, when I left Christianity to go to Islam, I never really um I never felt like, I felt them having that disagreements, right? But it was never really, at least for me, it was never really like, oh, okay, well, you're isolated and everything like that. They were like, we're here for you. We just don't agree with your decision. But with Islam, I find it was different, because individuals will physically attack you and stuff like that if they feel that you are talking negative about Islam when you leave and stuff like that. They will come at you. So there's a difference.
It
So,
sounds similar
Josh,
to Mary's experience, though. But it sounds like for Mary's, it was more structural. This is from me observing things.
say that again.
It sounds like they're more open to punishing an individual leaving Islam, as opposed to, while it sounds like for the Amish, and I could be wrong here, it's more structural, like, or maybe I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong. Never mind. Disregard me.
Okay, I say when people ask me why am I on Rumspringa? Did I leave on Rumspringa? This is what I tell them. I escaped my Amish settlement and my family in 2004. I escaped. Okay, I was supposed to get married that fall, that summer actually. I didn't. I escaped. Furthermore, when I escaped, I had somebody threatening me all day long in the presence of a worldly person. I write about it in my book if you want to read it. It's on Amazon, but I don't really feel like revisiting that specific event because that specific event was very traumatic. And what followed was even more traumatic. When I reported the abuse that I experienced, there were 5 people in my immediate family arrested, to include my stepfather, my biological mother, and 3 of my biological brothers. When that happened, I was immediately placed in the bond. I had not been put in the bond. I was placed in the bond. And the community, the settlement, I legitimately have a poster and a newspaper clipping of my bishop saying, "Oh, we knew it was happening. We just didn't know who it was." I wrote a letter that I put in the ministry's mailbox. And you know what? They said, "We didn't know who was doing it." I gave them names. They called the sheriff's department on everything that happened in that community that summer, to the point that my friends, people who talked to me, were being interrogated by the police. They harassed me. I moved like 5 times in a little over a year to get away from them. And still, in 2006, when I saw their van at the gas station in the town I fled to, I had to get out of Wisconsin. That's when I joined the military. So, no, I didn't just walk away. I escaped.
Okay. Understandable. Understandable.
When you
And
talk about
seriously,
people being willing to lay hands on you, do you know how many people laid hands on me? I can't even. My heart goes out to you.
I appreciate that. And my heart goes out to you as well, because seriously, nobody should be going through that nonsense. Nobody should be going through that type of shit. So again, I do appreciate like you letting us know that story and everything, because it feels like there's a lot of pain and hurt still there. So I appreciate that. But so it just seems to me that it's more like these outlier religious communities, such as like Mormons, such as the Amish and everything like that, that have that type of abusive angle to them. And don't get me wrong, even Christianity and Protestantism as well. I'm not saying that they do not have that, but I'm just saying that mostly it's those small, tight-knit communities that have that hold on that how could I say it? The oppression, in a sense.
They create systems of oppression within insular, high control religious groups. Technically, we could call them cults, but is it really helpful to call them cults? That's a question I always ask myself, because if we're trying to reach people who are actively believing in that, I don't believe it benefits me to call them a cult right now. But they are insular and they're isolated. They believe this separation of we are of the world, but we're not of the world. Like we're not really like we're here, but we're not of the world. Like we're not like we're in the world. We're not of the world. And when they do that, they end up creating this divide, and it others people and it dehumanizes people. And it creates systems where abuse is allowed to thrive, because often, by and large, silence. They teach this idea of the confessional privilege. Silence. Everything that happens in those settlements should be kept within the church. If it happens in your family, it should be kept in the family. And so when they do that, that's what allows abuse to thrive there, because there's never any scrutiny held to the actual rules of the church.
Right.
I'll shut up now.
No. That's actually please continue. If you got more information, let us know. There's no problem with that. But no, like just like how you stated, but I think you should utilize the word cult though, because you got to call it for what it is, even though that it's a how could you say it? It's an arm of the Christian denomination, or of Christianity in and of itself. It is a cult-esque type form in and of itself, right? So if we try to give it any standard, any standing as being something that's authentic, it gives it more strength, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I think if you're in, whether it's a cult or not, if you're in it, it's just not going to help you get out of it necessarily.
You're right.
How do you reach people?
That's how you. Yeah.
How do you reach people within the group of people that you're trying to reach?
Empathize with them, or try to find that common ground.
Is it creating common ground to call it a cult?
Yeah.
But can't you also like...
Well, you can hit it with multiple forms though, right? Like the one thing is that if there is abuse and everything like that, and you can get people who left the church to agree that there's abuse within that either community or whatever, you can hit it with lawsuits. Once you hit it with lawsuits, you can hit it in other ways. You can lessen the actual, you can lessen its power that it has on the denomination, break it up. And from breaking it up, you can reach the people more. Because as soon as the leaders start dropping like flies, they have nobody to replace them. And
Yes,
henceforth,
we
you
do.
can reach.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
Who are
Yes, we
those?
do.
If you
We
don't
just
mind me asking.
we just make another bishop. We just make another minister and make another bishop because you
Right.
know that's what we
You're
do.
right. You're right. But at the same exact time, though, who is within the mix of all the people who are doing these harmful things? Because if they're also doing harmful things, just like that other bishop is as well, you can take him down as well. And you can take that other person down as well. And that other
Yeah.
person. You can take down the whole entire. Yes, it's like a hydra, but you can still take down many heads and make them freaking terrified.
Those three
It's
omnibus
harder.
bishops, by the way,
Collect some scalps.
they were all three prosecuted and convicted by a bench trial for intimidation, victim witness intimidation. They got a slap on the wrist, but that set a
No.
precedent.
But yes, that's what I'm. Oh, here.
That's
one
good.
second.
Yes, but you're right.
Let's
That is
say,
how you reach people is by creating common ground and actually like reaching people where they are. So for me personally, because I actively serve active Amish people, I do not call Amish people a cult.
Oh, you don't need to call them a cult,
I-
but
Yeah.
the organization in and of itself. There's a
The
difference.
organization in and of itself, you know what? There are probably as many different flavors of Amish churches as there are what's something that has a lot of flavors?
Protestant.
Flavors
Baptists.
of bubble gum? I don't know. Something like
Ice
that.
cream.
Ice
Yeah, ice cream. There you go. So I don't feel comfortable saying the Amish church organization is a cult. I say that some of the settlements, like they really are high control groups because you have such a wide variety of them. And I feel like I can reach more people if I talk about it in a context that does not alienate people that would otherwise be my allies in what I'm doing.
I
That's
think
very
Junior
clever.
and I were talking the other night about a little bit about kind of deconverting ST kind of thing. Eric, by the way, Skeptics and Scoundrels, awesome guy. I hopefully he'll show up. Me and Nimber were on his channel, and he helped talk to a couple of Christian deists, and did a great job by being kind and showing respect to them and stuff. He's able to go way further than anybody I've seen before. These two guys, and it's because of the approach he took. It was more of a kind approach, and he would never have called them a cult and stuff because it would have alienated them. And it's the reasons a Christian is a Christian, I have found, is either indoctrination and the bite model, if you've said that at all. I can't remember. I is for information. I can't remember the rest of it. But you isolate them to that, all the information they get, all the community they have. You first you get them so they can't say no. And there's that, and then there's other Christians that there's other reasons besides facts. We can beat them over the head with facts, but they're not going
it's
to change
definitely not
because
facts.
they want
You got to hit them with the
community and
emotions.
stuff. You got to
That's
hit
the
them with
one way.
emotion and family. They're there because they want community. They want family and friends that are also in their religion. They want fear of death is another. They feel they can get comfort from it. And there's other reasons too. It's going to be a combination of these other reasons. They don't believe because of some facts, scientific facts or history facts. They don't believe because of Pascal's wager or the shroud. And fighting them on this, fighting them on the Bible, isn't going to really deter them from believing. I think we got to hit them with emotion and the things that really have convinced them to be Christian, either
Well, a lot of times,
indoctrination or the other reasons. That's
Right.
why I approach people, Christians that I want to get along with and talk about this subject.
Yep, you got to get to the why,
Mhm.
not just the what.
Yeah.
oh,
why are
absolutely. But I think at the same time too, you need to hit it multifaceted though. You can't just hit it with emotions and stuff like that when you have other individuals who are out there who are hitting it with logic or what they perceive as logic, like apologists, for instance. And then the apologist
Mm.
wins debates, and now all of a sudden the people start going around the apologist, and this guy can beat this person and that person.
Mm.
So the thing that I always look at it towards a certain extent is go for these big individuals, these paragons of these particular groups, and you go right at them as hard as you possibly can.
Yes.
Beautiful book, by the way. Hit them as hard as
Great
they
book.
possibly can.
What
And at
book
the
was
same
that?
exact time, what ends up happening is that it crumbles the edifice. And then individuals who want to be more emotional and everything like that could come in once the rubble has finally settled, in a sense.
Well,
And that's
Okay.
why
by
Okay.
the way, great book. I'd love to have that book sometime. Just listening to
I
my
just want to point this out though, is like, yes, that works for some people, but there are also other people who that may not work for. So I would encourage everybody to think about this. Is like when you see that something that you're doing is, yes, it's causing them to question what they're doing. Sometimes you got to let people sit with that for a little bit and then swing back around. And then you can always adapt the approach and modify it for the person specifically. And part of what you want to do is you want to empower people to live their lives. You don't want them to look at you as their rescuer or savior or their hero. You want them to look at you as a person who maybe help them figure out how they want to live their life. But they were able to make those decisions for themselves.
Oh, big time. But that's the thing, though, is that there's some times, and just like within these movements or whatever, or let's just say organizations in and of themselves, just like with Jehovah's Witness, for instance, the only way in order to really start doing quote unquote damage to these type of organizations is if there's a concerted effort on multiple ends. Like if you don't have that concerted effort, you're not going to be able to take down these organizations. They'll continue to thrive. They've dealt with such ferocity beforehand by one angle. You hit them with multiple angles,
See,
they'll definitely
In
fall
your-
quicker.
you need people within the group who are working towards your goal. You need people exterior to the group to apply pressure who are also working towards the same goals. And you need people adjacent to who are also working towards the same goals.
Exactly.
organizations are fought differently than people to change people.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
they are
But
made. Unfortunately, those are made of people.
Yes.
To fight the organization, I think you have to start with people.
Yep.
People.
Yeah, for sure. Like, take the Catholic Church, for example. No amount of atheists and arguments and humanists and whatnot, you cannot take down the Catholic Church. All you can do is liberate the Catholics so that there aren't any more Catholics for there to be a Catholic Church with.
That's the one thing, though. That's where I disagree, right? Because if you look at the Second Vatican, for instance, and the whole entire screw up based on the sexual scandals that happened, right? What ended up happening is that so many priests were actually arrested based on those scandals. And what happened was that more people looked at the Catholic Church and stated, holy crap, we didn't know that the Catholic Church did stuff like this. And some of their adherents left because of it. And the one thing is that you got to hit it in multiple different angles. You got to hit it where it's sort of like, this bishop did this bishop did that, this bishop, all right, everybody get together, let's attack this place. Let's bring this place down. But if you only go for the people, and I hate saying this, it's sort of like playing chess and only going for the pawns. You're not going for the king. You're not going for the queen. You're only going for the pawns, and that's going to take forever. And let alone, you need people to stay within that the nouveau belief system. You don't want people to go into something even weirder than that: Scientology, Mormonism, all the rest of these other things that people have a tendency of going into for some weird reason when they become nuns.
Because it's a fun flavor.
You want to know what often happens with Amish people and plain Mennonites?
Of course.
What often happens is that we get recruited because we don't actually evangelize. I can't even say the word right, okay? Forgive me. But we don't actually go out. We don't believe in recruitment. We don't ever do that. Mm-hmm. Like, we just don't. And so what often happens with many people is that plain Mennonites actually go out and recruit Amish people to fill their pews.
Interesting.
That is very
Why do they do that? Is there an explanation for it?
Steady supply.
Oh.
They're devout. Mm. And also it probably feels pretty freeing to go from being, older Amish to like plain Mennonite.
Yeah.
Depending on the rules, especially if you get to drive a car instead of a horse and buggy. Which, to be fair, there's New Order Amish that drive cars, just so you know. I'm just saying the flavors.
Yeah,
good point.
Lots of flavors. It gets confusing sometimes.
I disagree, but
I think that to combat what organizational abuse has transpired in the U.S., this is my personal opinion, is that we have to actually change our laws, because our laws, some of them are so outdated that they are just heinous. They do not protect the rights of children. They don't protect the rights of people as human beings. So we have to fix our laws. And then we also have to stop giving religious deference. Let's really go there. Because you want to talk about separation of church and state in America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Let me tell you a little story. So around the 1920s, the first Amish parochial school was created that I know of in Delaware. Secondly, by 1972, because of all of the higher education laws, the compulsory education laws that were being passed, there were more parochial Amish schools created. However, in Wisconsin, there were 3 Amish families that refused to send their children to compulsory education. The state of Wisconsin took them to court. You know what happened? Our Supreme Court decided, as they wrote in the footnotes of the ruling, that Amish people don't commit crimes, that we get to not send our kids. Amish kids don't have to have an education beyond 8th grade because it's against their religious beliefs. You know what we did instead? We worked. We worked. We were labor. We were labor. We worked our little child developing bodies off. We worked ourselves half to death.
Free labor is another big reason for cults. So, hey, did y'all hear that Florida's working on repealing their child labor laws?
I see that, and I'm horrified by it, because this is what happens. Is that so? I am a product of Wisconsin versus Yoder. My teachers were taught by teachers who only had an 8th grade education. Some of them didn't know how to do basic fractions.
Nice.
Damn.
Furthermore, once I exited, let's not even talk about the curriculum that we had that was heavily moderated by the school board and the church ministry itself. And if a parent had an issue, they would probably go to the school board, and if the school board didn't do anything, they would go to the ministry. And then it would be a whole church issue. But anyways, the Supreme Court decided that Amish tourism, which as of 2022 was worth $2.4 billion in one county in Pennsylvania.
Whoa.
One county. How many counties are there in Pennsylvania that are heavily Amish populated?
Shit tons.
So tell me it's not about the money, because it's always been about the money, and it's always been about getting legal child labor. Tell me why my relatives who were boys who were 14 years old out there running chainsaws and logging, tell me why they were doing that, and that was legal in the 90s.
It's still in a lot of places. Like I've mentioned before, I've as a truck driver, I've unloaded at various Amish and Mennonite communities, and some of the Mennonite ones, the person with the forklift who comes out to unload me is like a 5-year-old boy. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
There's supposed to be child labor laws, right? Why do those laws not protect those children?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because religion is taking forefront. That's the number one. Like, don't get me wrong. Yes, it's money, but at the same time, it's religion. And if you're looked at as a proper religion in and of itself, well, you got your own rights, your own values, your own laws that you can live by that is separate from the laws of the land.
I have a commenter who says, tell me why. And this man was actually a guest on one of my last live streams on the Misfit Amish YouTube channel. We talked about the history of Amish abuse activism. His name is Samuel. He said, tell me why I was working on a sawmill at 13.
That's dangerous work too.
That it is. Because maybe working equates to godliness. I don't know. I'm not that familiarized with the Amish way of looking at things.
It's just to the Lord.
More about money.
Praise be.
Right. Well, yeah, it's money, but at the same time, it's like
if you're going to take them down, laws are really important here. As far as, and you got to look at the human aspect. Definitely.
But you also look,
if you can do that, Josh, oh, sorry, Clyde.
No worries, but I think like what Mary's getting is it changing this structure, so those things don't happen, and then you can prosecute those who do it. But like, can't they hide behind religion?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the same as that thing as those. I forget what community it is, but it doesn't allow blood transfusions.
JWs.
To their kids. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it is Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, it's sometimes they go back and forth on that one.
Yeah, that should be looked at child abuse as well, but at the same exact time, because of their religious affiliations,
okay, but
here's the
question though: when does a religious organization have more rights than a child, an actual human being, and why?
Mm-hmm.
Because God knows. Because God is the only thing that should matter, I guess, to these religious communities.
Yeah, no. I do have a comment that I want to address. Somebody said, I still don't understand how the Yoder family got to court, because isn't that also forbidden to go to court to sue? So the Yoder family did not actually sue the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin prosecuted the Yoder family. They prosecuted 3 Amish families.
Oh. What's your book called?
My book is called Reflections and Memories of an Amish Misfit.
Thank you.
It's a story of survival. You might want to have not a weak stomach to read it. And if you wear a hat, you might want to grab onto it, and you might need a brandy old-fashioned afterwards.
It goes deep. I've already told Mary in private chat that only go as deep as she wants. Maybe not even that deep, because people can't. I don't think people can handle it. This is the case. People really can't handle the truth. because it goes deep. Our story is not a light one, to say the least.
Not a
And
light one.
so we don't need to go in. I
It
don't know
goes
how else
one
to say
way.
it. I'm saying it in a
Look,
lightly. I
if
don't
you're
know how to
looking,
say it. It's a horror movie, okay?
okay,
It is. It's a damn
Hey.
horror movie.
I will read you something in a second. Hold on. It's going to come
Interesting.
directly from my book.
Okay.
Because you know what? This is not a story for the faint of heart.
Hmm.
This is a story of trauma and survival. It's a story that talks about neurodivergence, being that lived experience, about queerness, growing up in 5 different Amish communities. And part of the things that people don't want to hear is because there's been this narrative about Amish people in books, in media of all sorts and all types. You have shows like Breaking Amish, you have shows like, what was that other one called? Return to Amish. Those are reality TV shows. They're not real.
Yeah.
You have Amish romance novel industry, which also makes a ton of money. Beverly Lewis is very, very, very wealthy, but I digress. Whatever. I'm not saying that that's making it, so that Amish culture is misused, but the people who read these books are quite often almost delusional. And I say that because they compare my life to a romance novel. If you're looking for a feel-good story, this is not for you.
Mm.
This is not a feel-good story. This is a story of desperation. And be very sure that you take breaks if you need them. Thank you. I'm not even going to read from my book. Thanks.
Yeah. She's not just a survivor, though. You more than survived. And I just want to say you are a big inspiration to a lot of people. I've seen you matter to people and you help people. So
You know, Wes, nobody said you need to come on here and be all positive and kind and supportive.
somebody
Yeah,
needs
what the hell, man? What the hell?
What
somebody
the hell?
needs
But
to,
thank you.
everybody. I really respect Ember and Josh here too. Don't get me wrong.
Don't get me wrong. These other two,
No.
they're fine.
Yeah.
They're okay. Josh and I used to talk. Me and Josh used to talk till 3:30 in the morning, like every night, forever. I've had
those
there's so much
morality
about capitalism,
conversations.
and capitalism and all kinds of stuff. Atheism. We've had good times.
We
Members
definitely
big
have. We
fans
don't
of-
see eye to eye sometimes, but we still
Not always.
have a great conversation.
I'm
And
just
there's a new
saying.
friend that I start calling you a friend already. You're a great guy. And so, go ahead, Mary.
And whoever's in the
Client.
background, whoever the hell
Clients
that is,
Or not. Yeah.
Jesus.
those backdoor people.
Right? Those individuals who do not want to be seen.
The
Yeah,
guy in
this
the back
is
does.
totally off topic, but I asked somebody the other day, what's the closet for? And this person said, for clothing and apparently to hide your gayness now. So what's really happening here? I just have questions.
There we go.
Yeah.
Whenever
Are-
anybody wants to hide gayness, I just have to be even more gay.
Be even more gay. Woo, woo.
That's right.
Ember, what does it mean when somebody comes to you and says something like, or along the lines of like, I'm just like you, except I'm not gay anymore?
Yeah, that's confusing. 'Cause I'm like, I don't even know how. That's like saying I'm just like you, except I don't breathe air anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's either part of who you are or it isn't. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when
Or
somebody
maybe
calls
the person could be curious. I don't know. Maybe
no,
they're like,
no,
I'm
no, no, not
curious,
in
and
this
then I don't want
instance.
that.
Not in this
Ah.
instance. When this person was questioned about it, what do you mean by this and more? They said, I went to a discipleship and I became cured of my gayness and
Yeah.
defended and
Oh my.
attacked myself and called me a liberal.
Oh no.
I was covered in the blood of Jesus.
There you go.
Maybe
There
I should
you
go
go.
pour some wine. That might be a good time. I can take the Holy Communion with y'all.
There you go.
That's it. Welcome to Catholicism.
Oh, we had Holy Communion too. And we did it right with foot washing.
Ah,
Mm.
yes, that's an important step that everybody seems
And
to
the
skip.
holy kiss.
Holy piss.
And the handshake that goes along with it.
Yeah, I heard that too,
Wait,
Clyde.
what?
I always like to handshake people
holy-
after I make out with them.
Oh, holy
Are we-
kiss.
Holy
okay.
piss.
Okay, I heard something complete.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, I was
Josh.
like, what is this holy piss you speak of?
The other end of the communion ceremony.
No,
Right,
You-
exactly.
You process the wine and then it, yeah.
And you don't forget, you gotta make the special bread, okay? Y'all talk about your chips with the Catholicism. We had the right kind of bread. You know, it was holy bread, specially made for communion.
But nobody can beat those wafers, though. Those wafers
No,
taste good.
wafers is just cheating. That is like an abomination to the Lord himself.
It's
Wait,
true. He has a big problem with you got to do bread just right. Sometimes it needs to be unleavened, sometimes it needs to be leavened. It all depends on what you're doing. But crackers are right out there. If they existed back in Moses's time, they'd be, you know, with the pigs and the things that chew their cud but don't have clothes and hooves, just unclean, not cool.
Remember, Jesus
Hence-
created the New Testament. So henceforth, this is something that's new, and Catholicism has built its entire empire on the new.
That's one of the reasons the whole thing falls apart, because if you do believe that Jesus was God, then Jesus was there during the Old Testament. He was at least helping the Father, if not doing the bitch work for him. And then there's that whole "I came not to change one jot nor tittle of the law." Yeah, there's a whole bunch of I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the New Testament upgrades the Old." I'm like, nah, it doesn't really fly though.
Luke
Oh,
says
we always
he
said
can
the
fulfill
reason
the laws.
we don't stone people is because the New Testament came and then everything was changed.
Right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. I've asked people
Yeah.
that. I'm like,
Yeah.
you say you're a very religious person. How many people have you stoned to death? Have you beaten your children for speaking disrespectfully? Have you made offered any slaves to become permanent? Like all the different things. And none of them do any of the things. Now, I partly blame Paul for that, because Paul went on about how, I forget the verse and chapter, but there's a section where Paul says, as long as you're not circumcised, you're not subject to the law of the Israelites. You only have to worship Jesus. But if you get cut, now you're subject to the whole 613 laws of Moses.
Oh,
Really?
Wow, didn't know that.
Because last time I heard, y'all, I should have never went to that Amish abuse awareness meeting. Yes, I should have, but I digress. Last time I heard, the reason we get little boys circumcised is because if we don't, like when the mother is cleaning the little boy, it can cause a little stiffness, and that can be considered sinful and can make the baby boy grow up to become an abuser.
wait.
That's a different take.
Wow.
That's Yeah.
I like
never
to
heard
mess
that
with
one before.
yeah.
You'd like to go
almost-
talk to the speaker? I might have a phone number. Never mind. I'm shut up.
Oh man.
I'm
But
just saying, like it's very interesting how different religions they use different tactics, but also the same tactics to accomplish the same goals.
oh, big time. Big time.
Mhm.
Like that's
It's almost
But
like we were
again,
talking about with our approaches to help deconvert people. You got to come from many different angles because
yes.
some people respond to different things. It's the same thing with religions. I think that's one of the reasons holy wars have died down a bit, because they figured out that not every religion's flavor is going to appeal to everybody. So they allow the others to exist because, hey, if my approach doesn't work for you, maybe the next church over will, and then we can just trade converts back and forth and whatnot.
So here's the thing,
Would
though,
that work?
is
I'm talking to
okay.
myself.
Would it work? Is like we were going back to Wisconsin versus Yoder and why that happened and all of that. Like that happened because people use Amish as scapegoats.
Oh, good heavens.
Look at the people, the attorneys who fought for them, for those Amish families. Look at what religion they were. And look at how it's affected people who wanted to homeschool their kids or send their kids to religious schools. Why do we have all of this religious deference for like literally built into our court system? It partially started with that ruling in some ways, as far as education goes. Because now we have people who are like, oh no, it is my right to have this curriculum for my kid. Okay. What about the rights of your kid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter because the kid is underneath, if we're looking at it religiously, right? The kid is underneath the tutelage of the parents and predominantly of the father, right? And then the father is underneath the tutelage of whoever is above him. And then finally, you got God, right? So if you look at that hierarchical tree, the kid has no rights in certain ways.
So what you're saying is that in a lot of religions, kids are property. That's what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You're along with, sadly to say, women as well.
So
Kids and women are property within religious, or let me rephrase that. Within certain religious cults, which we can then call organizations, women are also property also, right? Because that's the only way how they can prosper or to procreate with and have more kids is if the women don't have rights. And if women don't have rights, then you literally got a breeding machine right in front of you, sadly to say.
and also children don't have rights because they have free labor,
There you
child
go.
labor,
Mhm.
cheap labor. And when you combine the two, that is what creates the world in which we live in today.
Yep.
No,
Like
happens.
we're dealing even in Canada right now more along the lines of BC though than in Quebec where I'm from or where I'm at right now. We're dealing with a Mormon community that has literally caused so much disruption within their community based on abuses of this particular family's own children that is ridiculous. But the problem is that the laws that we have in Canada cannot prosecute this particular individual because of his religious rights.
Which is where I'm asking and I'm saying that we have to approach our actual governing structure and we have to change that.
Absolutely, but how do we change that if we don't even have a majority within the government itself, and when most of the people who are in charge are religious in mind frame?
Hard to change
Well,
laws.
then I have
Yeah.
a quick question. What about religious moderates? Do you think that they're a problem?
I
Some
do,
of
because
Mhm.
they have to follow some of the tenets, and a lot of times it's either do I go along the lines with people who are non-believers, or do I go along the lines with my own people and to with believers in and of themselves? And most of the time, sadly, based on group think, they'll go towards that side rather than focus on any other side in that matter.
Yeah, they form a shield for the dangerous people. A key example, the Catholic Church, right? Currently in the United States, approximately 56% of priests have a pending allegation against them, and half of those have more than two. But because there's so many Catholics who aren't predators, it forms a shield for those ones who are.
Exactly.
Because people use them to justify that. Let's talk about people's beliefs. People use these like it's not all Catholics. It's not my church. It's not all Amish. It's not all Baptists. It's not all. We have all of these good people, and you would really seek to destroy that? I can't do that. I need this. I need this for me. It becomes all about self-preservation.
Absolutely, 100%.
And they tell
That's sorry. Go ahead. My apologies.
No. I mean, like, they tell themselves these lies because those lies allow them to live with I want to say delusions, but actually the beliefs. They allow them to live with the atrocities that they see being committed, and they say it's just a few bad apples. But in
Mhm.
actuality, it's not just a few bad apples. And whether or not those few bad apples are harming 50 to 100 people, we don't know. We don't know the amounts of people. We know that abusers can have up to, 200 victims? We know that. So whether or not those people are inherently individually abusive towards people in their lives doesn't matter, because now they belong to an organization that has covered up and enabled and allowed abuse to thrive.
So
Absolutely.
what if like religions set up in themselves punishment for those who have done those things? Would that be a solution or an
But
acceptable?
that's the
It's been
Every
problem.
time
tried.
I got firsthand experience.
It doesn't happen, I'm hearing.
It doesn't work.
It
No,
doesn't
because it's
work.
mostly it's the people on the top echelon who do the shit. So why would they put
Oh,
things that are stringent amongst themselves?
Let me
interesting.
just go there. Think about it like this. Josh Duggar, what did they do when he was 14? They
I'm
sent
not
him off
familiar
to a
with that.
farm. They sent him off to a farm where
Oh,
he had to work hard, and that was supposed to cure him of SAing children younger than him. Did it work?
Wow.
Obviously not. In my personal case,
mhm.
they put him in the bond for 6 weeks and shunned him for 6 weeks. Every time I told, it got worse in some ways. One
Jesus.
time I told, I was tortured for over 6 hours. So, does it work? No.
See,
They
people
do
like
not
that
have
need to be.
the knowledge, they don't have the tools, they don't have the resources, and they do not have the skills to rehabilitate those offenders. So, no.
I don't think there is any way
And
to rehabilitate
furthermore,
those offenders,
when people belong to institutions
and
like
there
that,
shouldn't be.
they see themselves as part of the institution. So when you criticize the institution, they take it very personally, like we are attacking them.
Hmm.
They forget that they have a moral and ethical obligation to put forth an effort to make society at the minimum safe if you actually read the New Testament and you believe that it all passed away. They
Yeah,
forget that.
well, that's one of the big reasons that so many faiths push guilt, because that causes people to default into the defensive position. They know they've allowed something horrible to happen in the name of what they believe to be a greater good, and then they feel guilty, and so they try to hide it, and it's a big old circle. Like, think of an abusive family, right? Like, I recently counseled somebody who, when they were younger, a teenager, they had a religious family. I believe they were Catholic, but it's not super important. They expressed doubts and how they, it's a free country, and they didn't feel like they wanted to be a member of the church anymore. So their uncles collectively took them and trapped them in a bathroom, like made them sit in the bathtub and screamed at them for hours until they finally said, Jesus is real, and I'll go through communion. And the family shielded that because they don't want any disruption in the family. They don't want, Uncle Tom to go to jail or whatever. So they all just, they were okay with it, effectively. They were like, yeah, it's fine that you literally tortured my grandchild because I don't want you to go to prison. Now extrapolate that out to a church.
That's exactly what the church does. They even go so far as to say, and I'm reading this from a letter that was sent to me by my oven in 2013. I stopped speaking to her shortly after that. God keep you in his love today and be your special strength. I pray God give you wisdom to pursue the extra tasks he gave to you. God give you courage to proceed when rest seems rather what you need. He knows what weight your arms can bear and watches with his love and care. I'm supposed to, 1, shut up about it, and 2, forgive. Or maybe it's 1, forgive, and 2, shut up. But I'm also supposed to be grateful that I experienced that, because that was what God gave me. And if I submitted to the will of the Lord properly and appropriately, then I would be grateful for having those experiences, because, that was my burden to bear, because God decided it was best for me.
I've heard that bullshit about free will and the problem of evil suffering. I've heard that as an excuse for that bullshit.
They do that as another way of divesting themselves of having any kind or form of accountability or responsibility, and they do it collectively. It's not just one person. It's the group as a whole does it. The organization teaches it and promotes it.
I've got a friend that told me that for the suffering thing. She's like, it's okay because I learned to forgive and things from the experience. I got positive things from the experience.
I've heard a lot of people say that too. Like, I suffered, but I'm stronger for it. But yeah, I mean, great for them to turn adversity into opportunity, but it's bullshit that they should ever have to. It's like saying, I lived through a war, so, I'm less emotionally accessible, like I'm less sensitive or whatever. It's great that you're looking at the bright side, but that should have never fucking happened to you,
Yeah, it's exactly like that. I think it's also just another way that organizations decide how they're going to label things, because then when somebody gets prosecuted, if you watch Sins of the Amish, you can legitimately hear a letter being read by the prosecuting attorney that was written by my oven. She said, with what Mary has done and all, like this whole persecution complex comes out in it, because what she's saying is that I am persecuting the Amish community, the Amish church, and my Amish family because I reported abuse. And also, for the love of God, if one more person tells me forgiving abusers is not for the abuser, it's for me, you can literally just see yourself out. Get out. Bye. Bye. I don't talk about whether I've forgiven them or not, because it's nobody's business except mine. Thank you.
Yeah, but nobody, I don't even think these actions should be forgiven. And I think that the worst thing that you can possibly do to a person is to abuse a person in that particular way. And henceforth, for me, I might be the crazy one within the group, but I think
Oh,
that it should be death. Anybody who does that thing should be brought in front of a firing squad and taken down immediately. They are a hindrance towards our people and they're a hindrance towards our civilization. They need to be taken down.
But can't you just
think-
remove them and put them in prison?
No, because then after we as citizens need to pay for that. And I don't feel like paying for people who do that to other people.
I really don't like discussing the money component because it muddies the waters about the whole moral and ethical component of it, when in reality it actually is considerably cheaper to keep somebody in prison for life than to try to execute them, because not only is the execution expensive, but all the appeals and the special court processes and all that shit, it costs almost 10 times as much to carry out a successful execution than to put somebody in prison for life. I'd much rather stay on there's zero chance they will ever have any value to anyone ever, so just fucking off them. Also, justice is nice.
You know what? Justice is a sham. I'm just throwing that out there.
Perfect.
It's
That's
a nice idea, but it rarely ever happens.
That
I
is
just
true.
want to say,
I want
because-
to say one more thing about forgiveness. So, I
Right.
personally believe that there are things that are unfucking forgivable. There is no way that you can forgive people for that. I also believe that it is appropriate for you to follow whatever practice you need in order to be able to walk through life and have fucking meaning in life. So you do you, boo boo. It doesn't matter to me if you never forgive them. It also doesn't matter to me if you do forgive them, but I would ask you to consider, if you forgive them, are you now giving them permission to go out and do it again?
I was just going to say that forgiveness, I was always told, is for you, not the other person. But it's actually, I would say now, for me, it's acceptance is for you, and fuck forgiveness unless you really feel you should, and that's up to you whether you feel it's
Yeah,
right.
like you can
Try
let
to
go of
accept-
the anger and move past it and heal and not necessarily forgive.
Yeah, you can still with
Okay.
acceptance and death.
Okay, but do we have to
losing
let go
somebody or
of
whatever.
anger?
No, I
No.
think anger is
No,
very
no.
good.
It definitely has its. I mean, it can burn a hole in your soul,
Amber,
so to speak. But
I'm
on
gonna
the flip
invite
side,
you. I'm gonna
Yeah.
invite you to go watch the video that I did with Cults to Consciousness, and then you can let Wes know what you think of it. I would love to know what you think of it, because
You little-
a lot of people said I was very angry. So I
Right,
want to know what
yeah.
you think of it, because you said you can let go of anger, and heal, but also, like, what does healing mean to you?
sometimes. Yeah, well, on the flip side, I discovered that anger is one of the very few things that can cut through depression. Like if you're just ready to give up and you can find something to be furious about, it can give you purpose.
I suffer from depression, so I wouldn't have to remember that one.
I'm just saying, here's the thing, is when you live with complex and chronic PTSD, you find ways to survive. You face things that people cannot fathom. So just picture this. I'm going to tell you about a night terror I had last night, if you would like. Content
Sure.
warning.
Please do.
Content warning. Content warning, y'all. Serious content warning.
Is this
You
gonna get
can't.
demonetized?
Ooh.
Oh
I don't know.
no!
Guys,
It was a night terror, basically. So I woke up in the middle of the night after, like, my heart was pounding. I was shaking. I was sweating. Because in my night terror, I had invited 2 people into our home, and one of them had the R-worded my child.
Hmm.
And we were dealing with all of the consequences in my night terror. But after the report and the police station, like that was over, that's when I woke up like that. Imagine having that be part of your various night terrors that you experience.
Hmm.
How would that
Yeah.
feel? Would you be upset?
Yeah.
And then have
Yeah.
people tell you, don't be angry.
Because part of me is like, it was just a dream, but also I know that was just it was just in my dreams. But I also know that that is a fear that I live with. And that I'm going to be talking about it in therapy next week because that's what I do.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
And then
the
people
only
tell me, go ahead.
the only real fears I still experience are stuff happening to my kids.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's most of the time the night terrors aren't really even about me. They're about my kid. They're about other people. They're about all kinds of stuff. But anyways, I know that when I talk about the long-term effects of complex and chronic PTSD, y'all, I was 19 when I was diagnosed with PTSD. I was 19 when my therapist told me after 5 months of EMDR therapy 3 times a week, there's nothing more I can do for your PTSD. Can you live with it like this? I was 19. So, when people tell me, if you just let go of it and you just forgave, then you wouldn't have the night terrors. Oh, you mean the first 500 times I forgave them didn't do anything? Because that didn't work. I
Yeah,
want
it's
to
like
ask them.
telling a depressed person, have you tried, not being sad?
Yeah.
Fucking so useful.
So helpful. Oh my God. Well, you just have to know my heart, though. My heart is good. I'm going to send you thoughts and prayers.
Oh, yay. I need a thoughts and prayers graphic. I'm not sure how that would work.
Can you make it thoughts? THOTS?
That's good. That's good.
Yes, send thoughts.
With the male
I'm praying.
graphic? Make it with the male graphic, though.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Big old jar of mayonnaise. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying, like, this could be really funny. You got mayo on there,
Is there anything that you could keep from religion and throw away the bad?
Community. That's the first part. Religion is very good at building community. Keep that.
Doesn't it also destroy it too?
It does. It does. But I'm talking about the very fabric in the beginning is how it thrives, is because it tries to keep the community while destroying the community at the same time. So
repurposes it, rearranges
it. Exactly. So I think the first part that we need to focus on is community, but at the same time, try not to destroy it while we're in the process. That's the first thing. Oh, go ahead.
You got more to say. Go ahead. Sorry,
No, please. No. Please, I'll jump in afterwards.
I'm gonna say something.
Do it. Do it.
My Amish is gonna show in just a second. For the love of God, can people learn to be more helpful towards one another? Like, for me, a sense of connection from people, and I literally suffer from executive dysfunction to the point where I need a body double to be present for me to do certain things. But people inside of modern Western society, or whatever, this world I've lived in for almost 20 years that isn't Amish, they don't understand how to be like, okay, helpful, like, I'm gonna help you do this, you help me do that. Like, they don't understand how to do things together the way that we did. A lot of them just have no idea what that is. They don't know nothing about like getting together and sewing together, or canning like 50 quarts of peas, or like getting together and making meals for somebody that's sick. They don't know. And I don't know if they don't know because they don't want to, or they don't know because they've never seen anything like that, or because it requires too much effort from them. I don't know. But I just would like to see more community building events like that. Just get together for like an hour and do something together. Somebody's got something going on, help them out. You might be surprised. It might come back to you.
Yeah, sometimes it does.
I can. Definitely. I think the problem is, and the reason why people don't do that is because people have also been screwed over by other people too, right? So they tried to put their hands out beforehand, and all they did was get bitten, in a sense. So people are like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to do my own thing, and people can do their own thing. And that's the whole entire thing that I think we need to rebuild again, just like what you say, is that try to trust in people again, but it's hard to do so. It's very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so.
Well, when you've been burned so many times, it's not easy. Like, people often have trust issues with other people when they've been burned so many times.
Exactly. And I think too, the one thing is that we need to have also a goal, right? Because religion, even though religion doesn't really have a goal, like, its number one thing is to serve God in whatever fashion that may be, right? Well, I think, need to take that aspect, but build a goal towards civilization itself. What are we trying to aim for? What are we trying to build? How are we trying to do that? Right. And if we're unable to do this, then already any secular movement that is going to come up is going to fail. Because this is my argumentation that I have for the secular movement on my own channel, is that I feel that we're kind of ran into a dead end right now. We really don't know what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. And that's the problem. And we're not kind of united in order to do that. That aspect of progress.
I think the only thing that I've seen that's been more united has been Recovering from Religion. Are you familiar with them?
I have, yeah. I've heard them. I've had them on.
Is I think still president and founder. I'm not sure if he's president. Yeah. He's founder. I'm kind of friends with him.
He's like director at the moment.
Great guy. Director. Okay. Yeah. He's great, though. Great person. And he has a great foundation. But I'm not sure if I usually put up his number during shows.
One of the things, I've recently started attending some of their support groups purely for the sense of community. Because one of the things, like I said, like community matters, right? And so I think, like, for me, what gives me hope with that is that they're trying to get together and they're trying to have some sense of community and solidarity, no matter where people are in their journey. But they're kind of trying to serve people that are maybe questioning their faith. Which, another thing that I'm doing, have you ever heard of Conference on Religious Trauma?
No.
That one I haven't heard of.
Oh. Well, I'm going to be speaking there October 21st, I think. It's going to be an online conference, and my topic is going to be an Amish baptism.
Oh.
The lineup looks amazing. The lineup looks amazing. But Janice Selby hosts that conference online, and there's also a panel discussion on Sunday talking about child marriage in the U.S., so that's going to be interesting as well. Some of the other speakers, have you all ever heard Danielle speak? Church of God, something like that, like Church of God.
Sounds familiar.
Danielle, she wrote a book called Uncultured.
Yes.
She's going to be speaking there.
Oh, that's cool.
And she's going to be on that panel.
That's really cool. Okay.
Is Janice Selby Freedom from Religion? Is that Freedom from Religion, Dan Barker?
No.
Conference?
I don't think so.
Okay, I
Yeah,
just
I'm
wondered.
gonna look
I
at
know
it.
Jana Selby. I know that name, but I don't know where I know it from.
Do you follow her on TikTok? She does TikTok lives.
No, I'm not on TikTok hardly ever. I can't. I don't like TikTok. The short videos of people dancing and stuff. It's just not my thing.
Well, there's more than that. There's more than that on
Yeah.
TikTok.
I
You
have
just
seen
gotta
some,
know where to look at.
but
Know where
yeah,
to look.
I couldn't find it, so I didn't. I don't know. I'll try it again someday. But my next
Here,
question,
I can
if
tell you
we
more about Danielle if you want.
okay, yeah, go ahead before I ask this.
If I can find her thing. Danielle Mestanek Yan is an American author and TEDx speaker who was raised in the religious cult Children of God. She later served as an intelligence officer for the U.S. Army for 6.5 years, making the rank of captain, and became one of the first women in U.S. Army history to conduct deliberate ground combat operations when she volunteered to serve on a female engagement team and received the Presidential Volunteer Service Award. Daniela lives with her husband and daughter in Maryland and holds a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology from the Harvard Extension School. Danielle is an organizational development speaker with the Macmillan Speakers Bureau.
Yeah, that's
Interesting.
quite a resume. It really is.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Thank you, you guys.
I believe the conference itself costs money, Deb, but you can apply for scholarships or sponsorships or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, feel free to share that in our groups for Skeptic Haven and stuff like that. Anything that I'm part of, you're welcome to share that.
Okay. Thank you.
And Skeptic Haven, I'll plug real quick, has a fundraiser. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll spend 30 seconds or so, 45
Go ahead.
seconds, and I'll play that.
Join us for our Halloween special, a fundraiser to help Skeptic Haven become a charity organization.
Skeptic Haven provides a healthy community and safe space to its members. In addition, producing shows that provide informative videos highlighting science, religion, and current events, both domestic and abroad. Please join us the evening of October 28th for our first Halloween fundraiser to get funds for our 501c3 and other expenses. We have many well-known YouTube content creators coming on. Come join in the fun.
Are you ready for the show?
That was
Yeah.
legit.
That was so creepy.
Like it's cool, but also creepy AF.
Good job. Thank you. That's the purpose.
That was good.
Yeah, Skeptic Haven also try to do a lot of community stuff. So, and we feel that's so important, just having a good community. So that's why I do all that stuff for them. So
I will say that Skeptic Haven does a lot with like helping people connect with other people who also may have shared experiences that they may overlap but not necessarily align entirely similar, and it's kind of beautiful to watch that as somebody who's like not affiliated with Skeptic Haven at all, because one of the things that I've seen happen is like people get connected and then it's like we find each other in our spaces later on and we're like, oh yeah, I met you on Skeptic Haven, let's talk, let's have these conversations, and it's creating more conversations than just on Skeptic Haven. Is creating community even outside of Skeptic Haven. So that's important.
that's awesome. That's part of what we try to do. So that's one of our mission kind of things, try to build that community and get people together and share experiences and all that. So thank you. And I may have to get you on
What?
for the fundraiser.
Oh yeah. Do you know, Wes, that I have sold over 1,200 copies of my book?
Really? Congrats. That's awesome. That's a lot of books.
I thought I might sell like 100 or 200, but clearly, yeah.
That's awesome. Congrats. I will go on to my next question that I thought of a minute ago. What do we as atheists have to offer theists?
Our
We
bodies.
need to build that up.
Bodily autonomy,
That's a good one.
personhood.
Yeah, person.
I still
Freedom.
think that we have development, though. We need to develop it more. I think
Yeah.
that we don't have, it's like we have good stuff as a foundation, but the problem is that for it to get to people more, we need to build up that foundation with a more concrete ideas, and I don't think that we have that as of yet. That is yes.
Yeah.
Thoughts and mayo. That's
Hold
right.
on, I gotta get a screenshot.
Clip that.
I can't with you.
I
right
definitely agree. We have to keep developing that because so many religious are not just indoctrinated, but they believe for a reason. Made us hard to be taken seriously right now.
Can you share that as a meme? We need a meme of this.
Yeah, we need me.
Yo.
Probably. Me switch
Linear
myself
just
back on here.
Killed me right
Oh
now.
my god.
Jesus Christ.
This right here, friends, laughing over stuff. This is so important to theists that I think just need friends, need some place to hang out besides church.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I actually
belonging. There's a feeling of belonging. If no person wants to be without that, I think that's part of the reason why they stay in religion. And I think that's why it has to keep being addressed. Like Emmer said, it's not just how, it's the why.
That's
we want to
right.
feel belonging, connected,
Yeah,
and we want to
connected.
feel like our life has meaning. And if
Yeah.
we're serving the Lord, then our life has meaning.
Oh my.
What do we use to replace that?
I say
And non-believers.
Yeah.
BDSM.
Something.
that's right.
Yeah.
My man.
Mayo.
No,
I'm sorry.
That's
something
right.
bigger
I
than
can't
us.
with you. I can't.
And there is a lot of things bigger than us, I think, as atheists still, that just love, community, humanity, things that I don't need love. I still got plenty of things bigger than myself.
But one thing that we gotta stop doing,
We
and
gotta
this is one thing that I constantly see, is that we got different atheists all over the place, right? And we got different atheist groups everywhere. Everywhere. We got Muslim atheists, we got philosophical atheists, we got atheists that have PhDs in physics and everything like that. And yet we can't seem to bring these individuals together. We can't. And it doesn't make any sense to me. The idea is that you're supposed to be, the way that I see it, is that we're trying to grab these individuals and bring them together so that we can have a stronger sort of foundation, a stronger community, because we got people who are arguing in different angles, utilizing their strengths in order to build up others' weaknesses. But the reality is that that's not happening. We're attacking each other within the communities without even bringing the communities together. And I think that is the problem that I see with atheism.
Yeah, I think I see what you mean. I mean, we're not a monolith. People believe all kinds of things. Like, Pine Creek Doug is one of the most well-recognized voices in atheism, but his conservatism has caused a lot of problems, and so there's been a lot of infighting. For example, the Line community, right? They have the Transatlantic Call-In show on Thursdays, and Pine Creek calls in and causes trouble, and then he does a live stream on his channel about it, and then Matt and Arden respond on their channel, and I'm like, why are we fighting each other? Like, because atheism doesn't necessarily mean humanism; it just means no particular belief on that one question, and it can be a problem.
I completely agree. And I think that in a sense, it kind of demoralizes people because they look and they're like, oh, atheism. Okay, this is something that's not like religion. This is something completely different. And there's no denominational breakups. And then all of a sudden you walk into it and it's like, wait a few seconds. Why is this person attacking that person and that person attacking this person? And why is this philosopher calling atheist whatever is called atheism plus or whatever the hell it is?
Yeah.
They're idiots. And
Yeah.
atheism plus or people who are underneath that banner are calling philosophers idiots. And it's like, guys, fuck off and get together. And that's literally what.
Well,
he's
I don't
saying.
care if
I
that's
think
right.
it's like a priority system kind of thing. Like the people are going to be people. Everybody's going to have different views and values and shit. But I agree that the conservative atheists and the liberal atheists and you know the communist atheists should all work together to focus on bringing down religion, because that's what's really holding humanity back and the bastion for a lot of these harmful conservative views. But that's a whole other topic. But instead you get ego battles, like Godless Engineer was getting into it with David from Deep Drinks over frickin' mythicism. Like, neither one of you are Christian. Why do you care? Like, why is your ego invested in whether Jesus was real or a myth? Like,
Right.
It doesn't fucking matter to us. Why are you fighting over this?
Right? But that's what I'm saying though, right? It's the ideas in and of themselves. And I think that what people need is something to bring together. Like, okay, you can be a mythicist, you can be whatever else it may be within the atheist community, but there's something at this very moment that is the problem. And we're not solving that problem if we're attacking each other.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of why the culture war nonsense is still being perpetrated. Like, all the politicians that bring up this kind of shit, like, oh, we have to deal with the trans panic, or you know, they're transing our kids in school, all this shit. Like, it's a real issue, but at the same time, it's a distraction. Like, we can't ignore it just because it's a distraction, because it affects real people's lives. But it's also still a distraction. They want us fighting each other instead of noticing that the real enemy is these rich motherfuckers who will do anything to hang on to power and money and control all of our lives. They use religion, they use culture, they use every kind of media, all for their own power. And everything they do, every dispute they throw in our direction, it's just a fucking power game to them. They do not care. We need to remember who the real enemy is.
Exactly.
I was also thinking people sometimes down groupthink, as we should, but we can avoid groupthink, be individuals still, and still have community, still have togetherness and
Yeah, like rational disagreement. We don't have to go to war over every fucking difference.
Yeah, we just don't have to, and we can be part of the community without being part of groupthink so much.
Well, the one thing is, right, is that I think that people in general, just like how Mary stated, people want community, right? So that's the very first thing. So how do we allow for people to be individuals, but then after at the same time be a community? And that's the hardest thing to put forward.
So part of that is people want to feel like somebody else is like them. But often when we were taught inside of insular religious groups and high control religious groups, what happens is that we don't necessarily have the skills to be able to connect with people in meaningful ways. So part of what I think that recovering from religion does is by having those online groups and having those in-person groups. I personally wouldn't go to one in person, quite frankly, I wouldn't. But I've went to the online ones. And even those, like, part of what can happen there is you need to have the space for people to learn the skills and the tools to be able to accept that, you know, maybe Jacob over here is physically in the church and mentally out of the church, and that's okay. That works for him. maybe I would like it if he wasn't physically in the church, but that's not my place to say, and I don't get to be judgmental about it. That means that I have to really check myself and reconcile that within me that wants to be like, just burn it all down, right? Like, if I said burn it all down, wouldn't I hate myself? And I'm say this because part of what people don't understand about Amish culture and about Amish people is this. I wouldn't say I'm an ex-Amish. I would say I'm a non-practicing Amish. There's a difference. Here's a reason why. When I was 22, Wes knows what this is. I see you shaking your head. Wes is like, I'm about to hear this. When I was 22, I was pregnant. I had issues. I had to go for a 2.5-hour genetics counseling. And on the questionnaire, they asked if I had any Amish genetics. I said, why does that matter? I literally had a panic attack over it. I was like, why are you asking this? What does this matter? And then finally I was like, well, I'm ex-Amish. And she said, well, you can take the person out of the Amish, but you can't take the genetics out of there. And then she explained to me very gently and very carefully that because I was born Amish, I have an increased risk of having a child with genetic defects. I called her a liar. But then I went and did some research. There is a genetics database that tracks genetic disorders in Amish, Mennonite, and Hutterite communities.
Oh, yeah.
There is legitimately a disease with my last name called Byler liver disease.
Oof.
Byler disease now, yeah. So why does it matter? Because I can never outrun that. My future generations can't outrun that.
Wow.
Because
Can't
we've
run away
been
from that.
intermarrying our second and third cousins for almost 400 years, this is the consequences of that. The gentle way academia addresses this, as they call it, the founder effect. What it really means is we don't have an adequate introduction of new blood, and so recessive traits become dominant, and that's why we get genetic defects like that.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Which
Yeah.
I suppose means that, assuming the elders ever want to take this kind of thing seriously, it means they should encourage the young people to go be promiscuous with the outsiders.
Yeah, but that would be a smart way of doing it, but I don't think they would do that. No, I think
No, probably not. When religious is your primary priority, it would be better to die pure than introduce the taint of the outside world.
Exactly.
There are some Amish that actually would like to change that, and some of them will pay somebody. I've heard many stories of this, but rumors, okay? I cannot verify this. I do not have any verifiable data, but I've heard many stories of this, both from communities when I was actively Amish and from people who were approached by Amish people and paid or told they would be paid to have relations with an Amish woman to introduce new blood. I even heard stories about how it occurred in some of those communities. Like there was I just, regardless, I don't have any evidence, so it makes me very uncomfortable speaking about it. But there are some Amish people that do know and recognize the dangers in that, and yeah, it does happen.
I used to hear that in high school a lot, and I was fairly certain that it was fake, but now I don't know. Now that you've said it, but I believe that's urban legend kind of thing. And now that you've said that, I just question whether it's happened before. I don't know. I figured it was just fake. But yeah, I've heard those stories, and I figured it was just kind of making fun of you. So,
well, maybe not. Maybe it varies from place to place.
That is true.
I mean,
because each Amish community, right, is different. If that is
each
true,
settlement is different, right?
Yeah.
We all have different rules. Like in one settlement, you know what we could do?
Yeah.
In one settlement, we could have chainsaws. The settlement we lived before that, we couldn't have chainsaws.
That is interesting. Okay. So it's literally like your micro community in a sense. Each little, I guess, area has its micro way of doing things, but at the same exact time, they're kind of like interconnected, right?
Well, they're interconnected in that they are all, I mean, conscientious objectors, pacifism, often seen as like the peaceful, gentle people. We often have relatives, like I have over 5,000 cousins on 23andMe. I don't think I'll ever sort through them. I'm sorry, my cousins. I'm glad that I've reconnected with some of my cousins who've also escaped. That's actually been really wonderful for me, and it means a lot to me. But yeah, we have relatives all over. A lot of us do, anyways.
Right.
It's great that you've had others or a cousin escape, or more than one. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And
That's
being family, somebody to relate to really well in that way.
Yeah.
Is what family's about. So
That's it. But I actually have a question for you, Mary. And if you don't want to answer it, that's fine too. It's fine.
Okay.
But I was wondering, do you ever and remember, I'm not talking about the abusive angle. I'm just talking about the community in and of itself. Do you ever miss the community that you
You know
had?
what? I'm first off, excuse me while I laugh.
Okay. Okay. Good.
You know what? You know what, Josh? If I had a dime for every time somebody asked me a question like that,
Okay.
if I had a dime, I've made TikToks about it. I have told my story. I have told my story again and again and again. But here's the thing. It's like, do I miss the community? I miss the idea that I could have a community like that. The idea. There's a difference between, do I miss the community? Do I miss the community who stalked and harassed me for years? Do you think I miss them?
No, but it's just a question because a lot of people have that longing in a sense where they feel that they are. I've had a lot of conversations with atheists that left their belief system and feel that they are more or less isolated. They are alone. They don't have they feel like they have no purpose. And then after in the back of their mind, even though that there was certain individuals that I've spoke to who did have abuse that happened to them, they still felt that there was a community aspect to what they left. So that's why for me, I was just wondering, is that the case for you, or is that, and obviously you answered that very succinctly. So thank you.
I mean,
well,
the idea. Sometimes you can really be in love with the idea. But when you wake up,
Sometimes it's the idea that
same with
keeps you in
people.
like when you wake up and you take off the rose-colored glasses and you stop lying to yourself and you start looking at the facts and you start understanding that just because somebody was harmful to you in a different way, and maybe it wasn't quite as torturous as other people were, doesn't mean that it was any less harmful, because there's a psychological component that comes with religious trauma. The fact that that settlement sits there and says stuff like 10 years later, somebody from that settlement also escaped, and they contacted me and they told me, they still preach about you being unforgiving. They still talk about you being unforgiving.
Tell them to start writing songs.
Maybe they should.
right.
Bring me a ballad and I'll take you seriously.
But it's like one of those things, like, why do you bother even telling me that? Like, what does it matter? I have a meaningful life now. It doesn't mean that life can't be, some days aren't harder than others, But I have meaning in my life. I have a purpose in my life. I do things that I love. I live my life out loud. If you're listening to this and you're struggling with your faith, I'd encourage you to be curious. Go out and explore different religions. Learn more. For me, when I joined the military, I went to a lot of different church services.
Hmm.
You know how that goes, Amber.
Yep.
And the thing is there were themes that were central to all of the religions. They're just rebranded, re-imaged. They're just used differently. And then I was like, I'm going to try one more time. I went to church one more time. I don't remember what the preacher said. The preacher said something, and I legitimately walked out of church. That was it. That is the last time that I went to a church service to try to worship.
That's dude, because I do agree that people should delve into different religions and stuff like that just to see how they are. But the one thing that I constantly am, how could I say it, nervous of is because there are certain individuals that know how to deal with individuals who've left religion, but they left religion because of emotional reasons and not because of, let's just say, a more, I don't know how to say
Intellectual.
it. Thank
Shoot.
you. Yes, a more rational reason, right? So a lot of times people carry that pain, carry that hurt, and that is the reason why they become atheists or why they become agnostic or whatever the situation is. And then all you run into is, and mostly I have to say it, my old Muslim community knows how to do this to a T. They know how to pinpoint exactly where your weakness is. And oh, really? So this is why you feel sad, because you really didn't feel that sense of community. And they did this. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And everything. Make you feel like they actually care about what you're going through. Make it feel, and slowly but surely you get lured in, just like an angler fish bringing in those little fish that don't realize that there's a mouth waiting right on that other side. And then bang, and you're done. You're done.
Have you
and
ever
there's
heard
Dawa?
of the
Is that
cycle of
what
violence?
it is?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear what you stated.
Okay.
Mary.
Have you ever heard of the cycle of violence?
Mm,
Have you ever heard of that, Josh?
I have.
I have definitely heard of the cycle of violence, but the thing is that would you mind just like elaborating just a little bit more, because I'm not sure if I have it down packed or not. So if you don't,
So what you're describing right now sounds like the cycle of violence. In interpersonal relationships, there's a whole cycle of violence. There's like the honeymoon phase where they like love bomb you. They draw you back in, right? They draw you back in. And then there's the little anticipatory phase where you feel like something's going to happen. You might not know what, or you might suspect what based on like patterns you've observed before. And then there's the act of violence towards you. Is that?
but the thing is that it's different though, because they won't act violent towards you. The only time when they will act violent towards you is if you leave. Then, and if you start talking about why you left, then they'll hone in on you. But if you leave and you're silent and you don't want to cause any problems and you don't rustle bushes like I did, then you're perfectly fine. You know, you can live your isolated life and never speak about the religion in a sense. Or if you're vocal like I was, they'll come right for you. They'll beeline for you. And they don't mind harming you as well, right? And you've been through this as well with the I was about to say Jehovah's Witness, with the Amish. So like you know exactly
one of those
denominations.
Same thing, right?
All right, I gotta scoot, folks. I gotta be somewhere else in a few minutes. It's been a fun chat though, and I'll catch you guys around.
Sounds like a plan. Nice meeting you, Emma.
Yeah.
Have a good
Oh, before I go, Every time I'm on a new channel, I have to show you my tits.
Ah, yes.
Amber.
Yes.
You just gotta do it.
Fantastic.
Later, folks.
All right, have a good
Freaking-
one. So,
I talk shit about him.
right.
Vigorously.
So, all in all, it's that they love bomb you, they bring you in, but they don't show you that sense of violence. Actually, they show you the sense of piousness at first, and people got Islam wrong. And look, see, like, look at us interacting with you. This is not how Islam truly is. Like, those are the extremists. Or if you land with people who are more fundamental, it's kind of like, yeah, but those are them, but that's not us, until you really start to delve into it, and you're like, oh shit. But mostly when that time comes, you're already in it. You've already stated your shahada. You're already within the doldrums, in a sense. So you feel like you just got to roll with the punches.
We've
You
had
know?
some friends that fell for their crap. I don't want to mention them by name, but yeah, we've kind of I've seen that by some Dawa people. If that's not a big hint, that it's sad to see them do that to people.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
why.
don't know that they know better.
Exactly. And that's why when I state to people, it's beautiful to, because a lot of people disagree with me. When I say atheism is a movement, they're like, no, it's not. It's just a disbelief in God. But that creates a movement, and then branch movements come from that. You get, I'm saying socialist humanist. What the hell am I talking about? Secular humanist. You got socialism. You got a plethora of other things that come from there, right? You also got my own view on things, which is more Promethean socialist in a sense. So there's a plethora of ideas that come from the actual atheist viewpoint that there is no God. It's just so many people want to say, no, you can't create a community just based on not believing in God. Of course you fucking can. But besides that, the thing is that if you come to the atheist banner through emotion, that's when they'll get you. If you come to the atheist banner with, because everybody comes through emotion. Not a lot of individuals come through to rationale. But if you're able to build up that rationale, right? You read certain books. That's why I state to people, read certain philosophies, read certain physics books, read up on your stuff, so that when you run into individuals like that, they won't drag you into the abyss, in a sense. And that's the thing. Once that happens, there's mostly never a time that goes back. And then after, slowly but surely, you start thinking that way. You start being that way. You start looking at the people that you were with before as they are the heretics, and I'm the one that's leading a pious life with my friends, and so on and so forth. And by that time, there's a shit ton of shit that'll happen. So it's just like you got to be careful. And I know that I don't know when you left. You said you left when you were young, right? The Amish community, so around.
I have been out for almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years. Wow. Oh, seriously, congratulations.
It'll be 20 years on February 16th.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing too, right? Like, even with the 20 years, people can always be drug into the direction that they don't want to be drug into, right? And the thing is that if they build up that rational reasoning, it gives you an extra suit of armor, in a sense, towards the nonsense. You're not going to be that fish chasing after the angular fish's light or lantern until it bites down on you. You're going to be more suspicious of that. But if you're unable to build that, or if you still have that longing for something which the atheist community doesn't have as of yet, it's very easy to fall right back into religious ideology, and predominantly into Islam, because that's the new thing that's coming to the West, and the West loves new shit.
I will say some of them do seem like a nil 604. I often, when I do go on there or something, I'll ask, what made that what made that change in a little bit? What made you ask or question religion stuff? A lot of them do. It is some educational things that they realize. Oh my gosh, uh, men do have the same amount of ribs as women. Oh my gosh, even silly things to us, but you know, they find, oh my gosh, the Bible does have contradictions or wrong history or wrong science. They'll see that. So I'm not discounting their worth at all. I just
Oh,
gotta say we gotta attack from both sides.
Yeah.
right, absolutely.
It's
But
multifaceted, many reasons for that person to believe everybody's different, and we gotta just hit them with all of it, when they are ready. We also want to make sure they are ready for it.
Mhm.
yeah, but
And that we have something to offer. We need something to offer them too.
that's
If people
exactly
have,
what I was going to say. Because if
yeah,
we don't have that offer, we're already dead in the water. Like, how
yeah,
many other individuals who were within our own little group then went right back into theism, right back into
yeah,
Christianity, right back into or Islam or paganism or whatever the situation is, and there's something amiss
theism.
and there's something the fuck awry with the atheist movement, and we need to figure that shit out, and we need to give people that extra strength again, so that when they do leave and they are connected with us, we got it, we have that foundation, and we can push forward and actually start changing things for the better, for the progress of civilization. But until then, we got to fix our own shit first before we can even think of the outside shit.
Yeah. We also got Puck.
Hey,
Hi,
what's
Pat.
going on, Puck? How you doing?
I am doing
Oh,
fantastic. I had to dust off the old setup here. I haven't used this in a very long time, and I figured what better time to come back than when there's a live stream here. So hello. I'm meeting most of you for the first time.
Yes.
I have seen you on streams and we've talked in chat, but this first time face to face kind of thing. So it's good to have you on here. Thank you for
Well, Wes, I've
popping
been
up.
admiring your work from a distance for some time, so I'm honored to finally be on here.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
And Mary and Josh, hello.
Hello.
Hey, nice to meet you.
So do you, how do we fix this problem of religion, Buck?
You know, I don't know that I'm the right person to ask because, like, I believe that the best way to change minds is to live your truest and good life in a way that is open to others who are willing to receive the message. Like, there's going to be some people who are going to be deeply entrenched into their beliefs, and although those make for very interesting dumpster fire YouTube streams, the people who are going to, I mean, the people who are going to change their minds are the ones who have the preconceived notion of what atheists are, and then when they finally meet them, like I've gotten people who say, "Oh, you're an atheist. I never would have guessed." Like those are the people who I believe are the ones you can reach by saying, "Hey, I'm an atheist, and this is the life I live. It's not the kind of thing that you thought I was, that it was." So maybe now that you have a lived experience of a fully functional moral atheist, let's talk about this and see what other preconceived notions you have.
Normalizing it, in
Yeah,
other
yeah.
words.
I think Puck,
For me.
like I guess like for me, I truly believe that change does happen that way. I would say I've seen a lot of changes happen since I first started speaking out. I don't know how long Wes has been out. I don't know how long Josh has
I
been
was
out.
never in cradle.
Say what?
As cradle atheist, I've never believed.
You've never believed? Yeah. Okay.
I'm
What
lucky
about
that
you,
way.
Josh?
For me, I've been out for 10 years now because I left Islam when I was 20, and then after I was a Buddhist for like 6 years. And it's 6 years, what the hell? I mean, 6 months. And then after I left and became an atheist after that. That's why for me, I don't know why, but again, maybe it's just because I'm like one of those atheists that are like a 7 on the docking scale, because for me, I freaking despise when I hear individuals say like, "Oh, I'm an atheist," but at the same exact time, I'm spiritual. What the fuck does that mean? "Oh, I'm an atheist," but at the same exact time, I'm a Buddhist.
You know what
The
that
fuck are
means
you
for
talking
you?
about?
You know what that means for you? Those
What
are
is
not
that?
your people. Those are not your people.
Oh no, because for me, I have an idea of what atheism is. I have an idea, right? And I understand that atheism needs to be emotional as well. I get it. And we can do that on our own. We don't need to bring in Eastern fucking philosophy. We don't need to bring in some sort of mumbo jumbo about glass making sound that cures cancer. This is bullshit. All of it is bullshit. Focus on what fucking matters. And the more that we start believing in the nonsense, the less atheism wins. The more that we start putting more nonsense into the people's heads.
Let me just put this in perspective for
Yeah.
you. So 20 years ago, literally 20 years ago in July, I was actively Amish. It was hard. There were people who were born and raised Amish, but who had also escaped, who had been combating the fact that law enforcement and judicial systems would not do anything about Amish child abuse. They wouldn't even open the door. They wouldn't even open investigations. They fought from night. There's a book available now. I think there's another book coming out about the very same cases, but it was a case of the Miller children in the 1990s that paved the way. The Miller children were being severely abused in their Amish home, and the non-Amish people, not practicing Amish people, and others, they brought media attention to it. Some of them went to the White House. They wrote senators. They applied pressure. So in 2004, when I reported the abuse I had experienced, because of how the church responded, a lot of that is in Sins of the Amish, by the way, some of that, but because of how they responded, I ended up going public with my story in 2004. And at that time, there were literally 2 other Amish AFAB people who spoke with me. That was about it. That was the only public stories that were being told. There was later articles written in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and published there telling the stories of various Amish and plain Mennonites, but mostly it was a lot of Mennonite stories in one Amish story. And that was around that same time. I think it was like 2005, or maybe it was 2004. I don't know. I digress. But the point is that because I went on 2020 and because I spoke and because these women spoke too, they no longer speak publicly, by the way. And because of how hard we have worked, if you go Google Amish SA, you will find cases you wouldn't even believe of. And furthermore, there are survivors out there. There's now, I co-wrote a research study in 2021 examining child sexual abuse within Amish, Mennonite, Anabaptist, and other religious groups. None of that would have happened if I hadn't done the work back then to prepare myself for this today. And my point is things can change. I never dreamt I would see the influx of survivors speaking openly the way that I have seen that happen. And not only speaking openly, they are reporting crimes, and some of those crimes are being prosecuted. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of looking the other way that still happens today, but the fact that those 3 Amish bishops were prosecuted, I am proud of that.
Damn straight. And like everything needs to start off from somewhere. Absolutely.
Right.
With the change. And as soon as that ball starts to roll, my God, watch out. And that's the thing. Yes. And that's why again, and I keep saying it again and again and again, the individuals must attack the foundations that are there. Because if there's abuse, that abuse is within the foundation itself. Attack it. And when you attack it, slowly but surely, the edifice starts to crumble around the individuals. And slowly but surely, they start getting nervous. That's exactly what you want to get them at. You want to get them nervous because nervous people make mistakes. And mistakes that are made can be capitalized on.
Oh,
I think the law
absolutely.
is important here to change things. That we really got to change laws, and this bullshit that you can't be an atheist and politician has to stop. We got to get some people to run that are good candidates that can go in there and normalize it, like Puck was saying, normalize being a good atheist politician that cares about people that,
But there,
politicians that care.
So,
but there is an
Mary,
atheist
if I
politician.
may ask, I don't know too much about Amish. Is there like conversion into being Amish? Like, do people? And I apologize. I come from a Catholic and a Mormon background. Okay, Mormons are out there trying to get converts all the time.
Mm.
I have no idea how this works with Amish. I'm guessing that outreach and missionary work isn't really that the main shtick, but the reason like Mormon conversions are dropping now, and I think that it's in no small fact due to people like who are going on YouTube and saying this is what the church is actually like, and pulling away the veneer that they like to put on about being for family values and good life, and actually showing this is what it actually goes on there. This is what their actual beliefs are. This is the actual abuse that happens in that church. And as more people see that and not just the missionary work, people are saying, wow, okay, maybe this is not something I want to be involved in. So I'm just genuinely curious. I'm guessing not nearly as much people converting into the Amish communities. So,
Well, we don't go recruit people. We don't have recruiters. That's not really what we do.
Okay. But
sometimes
sorry,
people try to join Amish churches, but I've never seen it be successful long term. The culture shift is too drastic. The mindset is too drastic. Their social status is always affected. Sometimes children are adopted into Amish homes. The 5 communities that I lived in, we personally believed that someone was childless, that was God's will, and they just have to submit to God's will, and they shouldn't try to circumvent that by going out and getting a child from, the world and adopting them.
Because we were talking about normalizing it, and that's like one thing by calling attention to what these religious communities look like on the inside, make them seem far less appealing. And maybe even just like I guess like some people might be appealed to the I guess like a simpler lifestyle or a more sustainable lifestyle. They look at that and say, oh, that might be interesting. Let's look into it. But then learning more about what actually goes on there is probably it's good that you're bringing attention to that. I think that's awesome.
Puck, you're saying I'm making the assumption that people look into like a plain lifestyle, blah blah blah, like they might appeal to them. Do you know that in 2023, in June, I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I have a remade Amish dress that I wore to a dinner with a group of friends who are like-minded in many ways. And when I left that restaurant, there were 3 men who objectified me before I even walked to my car. My car was like 50 feet away from the door of the restaurant. Because people don't just look at the Amish way of life, the plain way of life. They think that being plain means that you're Amish. That's a lie. You can be plain and be an atheist. Being plain simply means that you live a plain lifestyle. Maybe you live a more sustainable lifestyle. Maybe you, whatever, you don't use technology. You dress plainly, but you don't necessarily have to be religious to be plain. Okay? That's one. But 2, the objectification that the religions in the US have of plainly dressed women and AFAB people is absolutely gross and disgusting. They look at us as objects. And some of us, I recently had a guest on my podcast where we talked about, on my live, where we talked about dating. And this guest disclosed that after she escaped her plain Mennonite community, she had a partner who wanted intimate times to be her dressed up in her plain garb.
Huh.
I'd say there's a bit of a utter fascination and obsession and objectification. When I was a child and I walked down the street and there would be cars that would slow down and take photographs of the cute and quaint Amish children. When is it okay to take pictures of other people's children in the world? As long as they're not Amish. When is it okay?
I'm sorry. Do you mind asking that question again? Are you saying that people were taking pictures of Amish children? Or are you saying the Amish were taking pictures of
No,
other
I'm
people's
saying
children?
people are taking pictures of Amish children. We were objects. Like I felt like we were animals in a zoo for other people to take pictures of. And now with the internet, I see people posting pictures on the internet of Amish children that I guarantee you they did not get consent to take.
Mhm.
So, when is it okay to take pictures of other people's children and put them on the internet?
Well, it's never okay without the consent of the adult or parent that is there. But
So,
the thing is that a lot of people have this fascination of the unique or the, how could I say it?
okay,
The not, I don't want to say
okay.
outlandish.
Are
Okay.
you okay? But where does that take away? Like, where does that leave Amish people? Like, if it's a right for the rest of the world, we're just human beings. We still get to have rights.
Oh,
Why
absolutely.
do
But
people get away with this?
the reason why is because already, and it's not the right reason, right? I'm not saying that it's okay. Oh, okay, because they're unique. Oh, okay, because they dress quote unquote weird for the rest of society, that the rest of society can take, as you stated, pictures of Amish individuals like there's some kind of zoo animal or some kind of circus performance in a sense. So I agree with you, but the thing is that the aspect is different with the generalized people. A lot of people, when they see something that is unique, weird, whatever, they don't care about what's okay and what's not okay. The number one thing is to get the image of that particular thing so they can be like, look at what I saw. Do you see how weird this shit is? Right? Rather than to really care about the rights of that particular individual.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to say that it is clearly wrong to do that. Where I was coming from, and it's like this is why I'm still learning, and I have a lot to learn about different insular religious organizations. But a lot of them, what they have this thing that they present that to some people might be appealing, and they only really talk about the deeper doctrines later. Like there's a podcast out there called Behind the Bastards, where they talk a lot about insular communities and how what they ostensibly present might be something very different from like their core beliefs and what really drives their communities and convictions. So I'm trying to figure out, like, trying to learn more about what that looks like on the inside. So I apologize. I don't mean to come across as ignorant. There's a lot that I still have to learn, and I seem to have made you angry, and I'm really sorry about that. I don't understand what this is like, so I appreciate that someone's out there willing to talk about that.
No.
It is an
I'm not angry.
objectification. Okay.
Let me interject here. I'm not angry. I have a lot of feelings about all of it, and I speak with a lot of emotion in my voice. It does not mean I'm angry. I'm autistic. I have atypical emotions. It is not necessarily anything about you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
you're fine.
Like back in the
No,
90s, like a big push for the Mormon, for Mormon converts was, look how awesome our families are, and look how, like how strong our family units are. And that was a huge motivating factor for a lot of people to join. It's like, well, I want to be in with, it's like I'm having family trouble, so maybe if I joined a church that had stronger family values and really encouraged that, then we'll be stronger as a family. And then they'll talk about the weirder doctrine, like baptism of the dead. We'll worry about that later. We'll worry about the Book of Mormon later. Let's get them in first and interested, and then we'll worry about that. And this happens too on like Scientology. This happens in what is it, Quiverful? It happens in a lot of places.
You hit it
It's
right on the
definitely-
nail.
I will say it's definitely romanced
Mhm.
to be Amish. Like you got a good family. you just bake and make jelly and stuff. It's just great and
Oh my
wonderful.
god.
Kind of bullshit, you know.
Man,
Well,
how
It's
much I could just bake and make jelly. God damn it. What the hell is going on? Mary, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? God
yeah,
damn it.
gaslighter.
Oh,
But
I'm
I'm
a,
just saying it's romance
I'm
like
a,
it's this great thing. And Mary's taught me it's not pretty behind the
no,
scenes, you know.
no, a lot of
And
this
it's not some
religions.
but
romance novel
There are a lot of
bullshit.
like the Mormon Church works very hard to cultivate their image to the point where they even talk to their youth about the image that they present to their classmates and are encouraged to like, hey, if one of your classmates ever asks you about why why you're so happy and why you have such a great family life, and then growing up now, like I went to high school with a lot of Mormons, and now talking to some ex-Mormons,
Mm.
it like hearing them say it's like, yeah, we were told to present that even like we had troubles just like all families have troubles, right? But we were told not to talk about that and to present an air and an image of, yeah, we're such a happy family unit, nothing wrong ever happens in here. And then to hear how distressing it was for people to have to do that, and that felt that they couldn't really connect with people, and felt that they couldn't really make friends back then because they had to present such an image. It's heartbreaking. So
mhm.
Mm.
So, the Mormon church was romanticized as the ideal thing, right?
yeah, in a lot of ways it was. Yes.
And now you're learning and hearing about how behind closed doors sometimes you have the church as an organization instructing people how to present themselves, right?
Yes.
How's that really feeling for you to just learn all of that?
It was jarring when I first heard about some of the things like like not I can't go into too much detail because I didn't live that as a youth myself, but to hear some of the stories that my friends actually went through, there's no word for it. A lot of it is flat out abuse from the church and from church elders and church officials. There would have been a time in my early investigations of the church and my early being like enamored by the church that I just plain wouldn't have believed it. Like I would have put a block and said that couldn't possibly have happened. It was so vile and so like unbelievable. And then to hear the story after story after story of coming out and people who've never met each other corroborating and saying, yeah, this is the kind of thing that goes on there. It was emotionally jarring for me. It was tough to hear and tough to imagine that I had friends who were living that and couldn't talk to us about it, talk to anybody about it. It was
I
tough.
just want to
Yeah.
Sorry.
jump in here. Yes, it's jarring. We've got to put warning labels on most of our stuff all the time before we actually advertise a book where she starts the conversation almost. We have to put like a content label on it because it is a horror movie. And I say it laughingly, but it's also a fucking. I'll say that I hardly ever cuss, but it's a horror movie.
Look, my face
And
is the
go back
content
and look
warning.
at other. Go back and watch the first of this video, or go watch some of the other videos she's put out. Definitely, anybody's here watching, it will change the way you think of not just Amish, but just change your way of religion, all kinds of stuff. So I'll probably end this before too much longer unless more people join, but I do want you both let you talk a little bit more and stuff. And the picture thing, that pisses me off too. They taking pictures of your kids, especially. They're just taking pictures of you. Like you said, you'd feel like you're in a zoo. I would feel like I'm in a circus, Barnum Circus, as one of those freaks of nature that, as they would put on the sign, and that's just got to feel horrible. I don't know if personal, but I know just having empathy or sympathy, I always confuse them. Where you don't know what it feels like, but you care as much as you can. That I do have that. I was raised with that and empathy. Okay, that I just empathize so much with you and any person from another religion, but especially you, because we've talked so much. as friends now. You're definitely a friend. That I'm just grateful to know you and grateful for your stories and your sharing with us, like you have again tonight. I just really appreciate it. I just had to tell you that.
Are
More.
you grateful for the content warnings?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
And I'm glad that there are places where people can come out. Like I have to remember that my deconversion, relatively speaking, was pretty easy. I always lived, for example, in big cities where wherever I lived, there was always a decent enough community of non-believers who I didn't have to rely on a church community. So my deconversion was pretty easy, like 20 something years ago. But a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people had, especially who lived in insular communities, don't have that support structure and don't have the, the resources that are available now. So it's nice that we're able to use these platforms to be able to speak up and speak out. So
Yeah.
It was definitely a bonus in a lot of ways for us as atheists and stuff to normalize it. I think, at least in our community, we're doing that work. I think.
Yeah,
and
it's a blind spot for me.
Not just
blind spot because it's always been easy for me to find people around me who are also atheists. Maybe they're not as outspoken about it, but they are. But I have to imagine in smaller towns in other countries, I forget about places like that where it's not quite so easy to find people who disbelieve and for whom being excommunicated or being shunned is actually a pretty substantial detriment.
Have all your friends and family taken away from you. Can't talk to them though. I can't even hardly imagine it. It's just inhuman, really. But
I got to get back into the scene, Wes. I forgot how fun this is. I had to take some time away because I started a job that I had a lot of sporadic hours, so I had to cut back on a lot of my appearances. But just listening to just continuing to listen and continuing to learn and so it's been great and you put out such great content and I appreciate the work that you do. So.
Thank you.
I got to get back into this. It's a lot of fun. Look, I still have a pretty decent setup, right? The audio's okay.
Yeah.
I got to get back into this.
Yeah, great audio. So, yeah.
Do you do these live streams often? I don't think I've ever seen this particular one before. So
not this channel. I've had this channel for a while, but we didn't used to really have people on.
Gotcha.
Other than just a few friends. So tonight I just wanted to open mic, at least start doing some open mics and have some good conversations like this. And if I get subs from it, great. Even if I don't, I love these conversations. I can't really have on Skeptic Haven as much. So I kind of miss some of my talks with Josh in 3 o'clock in the morning. And we just stay up all night.
So Hidden Tech Gems there makes an interesting point, and I don't know how long ago this was, but said being an atheist isn't the choice. They think who would choose to be shunned by society, and there have been many times where I heard people who are youth in the church say that even though they have doubts, it is important enough to them not to express those doubts, at least in certain social circumstances. So even though they were atheists, and this is, I believe, also a subset of atheists that we miss. The atheists who are atheists, who don't believe, but who continue to present as if they believe in order to still maintain their communities. I don't like it either. I see Josh, you're shaking your head. I don't like it too. And these people exist, right? What can we do for them?
Shout out to Clergy Project on that one. That actually has priest and so whatever.
Yeah, that's a recent book too.
That are actually. Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead, guy.
That's a recent book, so it's a fairly new thing too. But like, they're just coming from a philosophy background. There is like explanations and defenses of that. If you're interested, I could tell you guys what that is called.
Yeah.
Why do you sound so confused?
I don't know. I mean, okay.
Yeah, we'd love to hear.
It's called like religious fictionalism. So it's treating religion as if it's true.
Okay.
So the Cambridge Elements has a series on it. And I think it's free right now, so if you wanted to look at it. Let me see. I'll see if I can find the other one. I mean,
I hear a voice, but I'm not sure who it is. Who's here?
it is me,
I-
God.
God, hello, God.
Guy. That's what it says on this. I don't want to dox him, so
Oh, okay. I just didn't know if there was like someone in like just audio only or
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. I apologize, then I didn't.
Do you want me to put your thing up here, Guy?
Pardon?
Guy,
Should I
do you
put
want us
your
to put your thing up here?
audio
You want your
avatar?
thing?
One sec.
God damn it, Guy.
One sec,
I was
guys.
going to put his audio avatar if you want.
I'll just. Can you? No, I can't post it. Never mind.
Do you
yeah,
have
yeah.
OBS? If you have
Pardon?
OBS, do you have OBS?
I'm on my phone.
Oh, okay. Never mind. That won't work.
Well,
I
do you
can
have
just put some-
OBS for mobile?
No.
You
Here.
got to get with the times.
I
Here we
know.
go. There, you're on screen. now.
All right.
Audio avatar. I don't know why I didn't think to do that earlier.
It's 2024.
Oh, do we know Spratley? If they're still listening, I wouldn't mind having them on, but I don't know them, and I didn't want to have them on, especially with Mary, without knowing who they are. Because wildcard, I don't want to do that to somebody that I have on like that with a serious conversation like this. So I don't know what they'll do on camera or anything. So they didn't want to be on camera apparently, so that's why. Otherwise, come back. I would love to have you on some other time or whatever. Especially if you'll show your camera to at least me. Like, yeah, that's why I didn't let you on.
You know, there's a number of content creators out there who, atheist content creators who they have an avatar or just go by an image. Like off the top of my head, I'm thinking of like Professor Plink. I have no idea what Professor Plink looked like. And now the atheist on TikTok, there's a lot of them coming out like that also. Great content, but they prefer, and maybe it's not a preference. Maybe there's genuine concern for privacy and safety.
like
Yeah.
that, or
And see, that's what we need to do for the atheist community again. We need to create that extent of safety for these individuals in real life. Not necessarily behind the scenes, like on the internet and stuff. We need to create community centers, these types of things that are welcoming these individuals to come in and being there for them when necessary.
You know, Josh, I don't know why I didn't think of this, but in April of this year, I actually went to Los Angeles because I was going to a meeting I was invited to attend where community leaders are working on creating a religious trauma center. And I think that's what you're talking about. Like, you want to have a community center that is just like locally based for like resources for people who are not necessarily religious, because often our soup pantries, our resources for low income families are often related to religious organizations. So how can we do that as atheist organizations? Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying, but I'm even adding more to it. I'm talking about facilities that are there to actually build forth activities, right? To build the activity of, let's just say, even the most mundane shit, going on hikes. I don't know. Build like an area within it so that people can work out. Build an area within it so people can start doing certain activities within the community center as well as building charities, as well as building these type of things to be the very foundation of the new way that we do things.
Okay.
There's a group.
So I want to point out that when you go on meetup.com, real quick, I can find things that are for like different groups. Like you could go start maybe by creating, because Meetup actually works on local areas. You can do local or on the internet, but you could start that. You could totally do that.
Is it .com or .org? I
can't remember. Hold it. Let me look at it. I just have the app because but I've seen like events that people do around my community, such as like going out and cleaning up, like as humanists.
That's exactly it. But for me, the one thing is that I think
Wonderful.
just like how certain individuals state, right? Sometimes having a building is beneficial because it brings that sense of like, how could I say it? That permanence, in a sense, brings
Yes.
that state of permanence, so that when you go there, you're like, okay, this is my place. This is my place to
Mhm.
relax. This is my place to engage with the people. This is my place to get into conversation, even if necessary, debates and other things like that. That is the type of thing that I'm wanting to build. And that's why, for me, being a Promethean secularist, that is my number one thing, because I think we need to be more and more on the ground rather than, because don't worry, the internet community is beautiful, but I think now we have literally wasted time with the internet community. Now we need to start building on the ground type things.
Interesting.
Okay.
So
This is
So
coming from
I'm
both.
looking at an event right now that is like Sunnyside Atheists, and they're doing something in person together, like what you're talking about. But what you're talking about too adds visibility, it adds permanence, like you said, and it creates, like, organizations can be created. You can create an organization that legitimately does that in your local area. And then you can still use Meetup to get people to be aware of it. You can also use other platforms on the internet, which would be great. Like, that is an amazing idea. Like, do it.
That's exactly
Totally
what I'm
do it.
planning on doing. And that's
Mhm.
why, like, I have my Patreon going, I have my own channel and everything like that. We're relatively new. I've also been afflicted with COVID for the last 2 weeks, so I wasn't able to really put anything out there. But now I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to feel more revitalized again, and I'm going to jump right back into it. And I think that that's the very thing that I want to try to do, is create that, because there needs to be a sense of permanence somewhere, and then after that can then start to expand into other areas, because that's the number one thing that I want to do too. I want to earn enough money so that I can start actually creating community centers throughout North America.
Mhm.
So here's
Yeah,
here's an interesting, here's where my mind went on this one, because if you have here in I think somebody pointed it out, like if there is a soup kitchen or some other charitable service, it is almost understood, and because there's so many cases where it's there's some religion behind it, and it almost seems like it's the default, especially, depending on where you live. Like here in Cincinnati, where I live, if there's a group, unless you specify that it's for secular or atheist purposes, it's just kind of assumed as a default that it's okay for religion to be there. And to change that default, to make it so that a group is secular until stated otherwise, would be an interesting goal. Instead of, the right now the default is, if someone wants to, if the meetup group likes to go to different restaurants, for example, if the default is a group member feels okay to say, hey, let's start this meal off with a prayer, right? Unless you specifically say this is an atheist group, an atheist meetup, or a secular meetup, they're going to find some way to assume it's a default. So how do you start to turn that corner? Like if I made a meetup group just for people who like playing D&D, how can we emphasize that it is secular without emphasizing that it's secular, and starting to make meetups by default secular?
I think that's where it's a difficult point, right? I think that's where we run into difficulties,
Mhm.
because if we're trying to hush that is secular, but at the same exact time trying to emphasize that it is, I think that automatically individuals are going to look at it and say, okay, well, this is a more religious, right, area, because it's like how you stated, this is a default. You need to be loud. You need to emphasize what it is. I would even say put that motherfucker right on the building.
We're gonna get demonetized, man.
Uh-oh.
Live your
Sorry.
life out loud.
There you
Live your
go.
life out loud. Let me tell you
This
something.
Can we swear?
I thought when I came out in 2014, I thought I was alone as one of the only queer Amish AFAB people. And you know what I find? That's not true.
Mhm.
That's not true. They're out there.
Hmm.
So
And many
you
times
gotta,
are scared into silence. So it's nice to have places like this where it's like, even if they still don't feel comfortable yet speaking for themselves, they see other people who are.
That's
You know.
it.
yep.
They don't want
Like,
to risk their life or something doing it, but in a place like here, I totally support them to come out and be your
Yep.
best to you and be you, as you kind of said there. Yeah,
Yeah. And people
live your
have to
best
do
life. And,
yeah, but just like how you said, live your life loud, because that's the number one thing. We are the representatives of those who are silent.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
are the representatives of those particular individuals. And if we are silent in and of itself, we have failed those other individuals as representatives.
Normalize atheism. Yeah, normalizing it means we speak out. It really
Mhm.
does.
Well,
Or
Wes, you know
In that
my
way.
view on normalization. You know my view, but
Yeah,
is fine. It's fine. I think both ideas can coexist together, even though that it
Yeah.
rubs me the wrong way. But I think
Yeah.
both.
you're sure spinning on
organizations-
there too, but
Oh my.
we could go through like morning to get one. No, talks to normalizing atheism by being good people, by surprising them when they need an atheist, and be like, "You never look like an atheist. You don't look like you eat babies."
right.
We
But at the
don't
same
look like we sacrifice people. We don't look like we eat
Yeah.
people. Wait,
No, laugh if you want to. I've actually gotten that. It's like, wow, I never would have guessed
my
you're an
gosh.
atheist. Yeah.
I've
yeah.
had that a little bit.
Well, Wes,
Go ahead,
I
Mike.
got to get going. It's really late over here, but thank you very much for allowing me to come on. I've been looking forward to speaking to you and having some screen time with you for a while, and I hope this isn't the last time we cross paths.
No, well, I think I'll keep doing this open mic kind of thing too for a little while.
And
See how it
Mary,
goes.
thank you very much for your patience with me in learning. There's still a lot I have to learn about insular societies. So,
Well, if you want to learn more about Amish people, there are podcasts on my channel on YouTube
Hmm.
from 2020. There's a lot.
I am looking it up right now. Is it Mary Born Atheist
No,
or the Born
no,
Amish? Sorry.
no,
No,
it's
Amish.
Misfit Amish. The Misfit Amish.
Misfit Amish. Okay.
Where
Thank you.
did I think born? Oh, your name tag on here is born Amish. I knew it was. After I started to agree, I was like, wait a second.
Subbed and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
And
bud.
Josh, you said you had a site also, or a YouTube?
Yeah, I have. It's called Atheist Uprising, but I'm thinking of actually change it to Promethean Secularists. So but if you go into Atheist Uprising, you'll see it there.
Sub there too. So thank you guys very much for your time tonight.
Much appreciated. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah. So
We just asked for the Duncan. I think had a question for Mary, and then maybe we'll close. It's 3. We've been on for 3 hours, so. I think
Oh,
we'll close,
yes.
but
This has been a very
and then-
long conversation, but it's been
let people take a
interesting.
break. It's been a great conversation. I
My
think we've all-
favorite movie, y'all laugh with me. It's The Last Unicorn.
mhm.
Never heard of it.
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
You should totally watch it. It's a good movie.
Okay.
Takes away
Yeah.
from the seriousness of the world, but really it's such a good movie.
Definitely. We got to have laughs in there too. So,
Hmm.
anything else?
I see that other question. I'm just waiting for it.
Oh, I didn't see it. What's the other one? Is it okay to put up?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You know what?
Affinity. Okay. They said affinity.
What do you think? What do you think? because I'm gonna say this, like the religion itself, good qualities. I mean, you should read my book. That's the answer to that question. I'm not going there. Do you think that as more people speak about the issues, there's a chance it could change? Well, I think that the Amish churches are headed for a big, big, big split. And I've been saying this for a couple years because I think there's Amish within the church who see the issues and they're pushing from inside. And with the external pressure that's happening, is some groups are saying, oh no, we're not doing that. We're not addressing this. We can't talk about that. And so they still persist in this culture of silence. And I think that on the issue of sexual abuse, Amish churches as a whole are going to have a big split. They've had this happen before on various issues where, they'll have like a really big split of like, this side believes this and this side believes this, and that's where they draw the line on like whether they affiliate with each other or not.
Clyde, do you have any closing thoughts? And then we'll go to Josh and then let Mary have the last word.
None whatsoever. I've enjoyed the conversation though, and listening in the background. No, not so much. But yeah,
we appreciate having you.
Thanks
He
for having
wanted
me.
to talk about ethics and morals, though. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
And I was kind of wanting to jump on that. If you actually want to, could just extend it just for a little bit, just so that we can touch on that really quick, because my views on that subject matter. So, but no, I think that in and of itself, what we need to do as atheists is to focus predominantly on a goal. And on a massive goal, right? Because the whole entire problem is all these individual, like small little groups that we have are slowly but surely making us into a fragmented group. And being a fragmented group is very easy for religious individuals to take shots at us. We need to bring the group closer together and then aim at a goal. And from that goal, we just keep building on it, and we keep building on it, and we keep building on it. And from there, we create that foundation which is necessary for the next step in human mental evolution. No need for gods anymore. That is the number one thing. I'm done.
Well, I would always say that I encourage people to question things. And when something makes you uncomfortable, sit with it. Why does it make you uncomfortable? What about that makes you feel so uncomfortable? Why do you believe this? Why do you think that it's none of your business if you see people doing the wrong thing? Think about that.
Make sure you're up to her. And I will. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for discussing the topic, Mary, Guy, Josh, also Puck, and Ember. I thought it was a great combo. And we will see you next time. Hopefully we can keep doing this. So, bye.